Chapter 36-28. Of course, the nascent soul cultivators found this difficult to accept. However, when they saw the arrogant Enchanting lower his head in disbelief, they then looked at the nascent soul cultivator, who had just lost half of his shoulder, and was now as pale as a sheet of paper, and finally at Shui Mingzi, who was trying to escape but was being held back by his demonic pet and magic treasure. How could they not have made the right choice? The dozens of nascent soul early and mid-stage cultivators all swore blood oaths, which were all taken away by Xiaohua without exception. Then Xiaohua withdrew his heavenly laws embodiment technique and pointed with his finger. Go surround Shui Mingzi. Yes, the dozens of nascent soul cultivators couldn't even muster the will to resist. They responded in unison and surrounded Shui Mingzi. Only Enchanting and the early-stage nascent soul cultivator, named Xiongyi, were left in front of Xiaohua. Seeing such a scene, Xiongyi was at a loss of what to do. He didn't know whether to leave or stay. His eyes slightly turned as he looked at Xiaohua. Xiongyi, you can leave now. Xiaohua ordered. Yes, thank you, Senior. Xiongyi came to his senses and hesitated. He bowed and flew into the distance. Enchanting said indifferently. Daoist Xiao, although I swore a blood oath to follow your orders, if you don't respect me, I would rather self-detonate then. Can you still self-detonate now? Xiaohua replied even more indifferently than Enchanting. Enchanting's expression changed greatly. However, Xiaohua quickly added, Of course, fellow Taoist, don't worry. I am not like that old bastard Huda. You will know my character in the future. Alright. What else could Enchanting say at this point? He looked at Shui Mingzi, who was surrounded by the nascent soul cultivators, and said in a low voice, This Shui Mingzi has some background. If you can subdue him, it will be of great benefit to you. Oh, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and nodded. Brother Ao, don't worry. In the Yaotai Mountain, he will either fall into the hands of the Star Lord Palace or me. I believe he will make his own decision. Alright, I'll accompany you, Enchanting said in a low voice. He was naturally unwilling to let Shui Mingzi escape, after falling into Xiaohua's hands. By the time Xiaohua and Enchanting arrived at the scene, Shui Mingzi had already put away his horsetail whisk and was hovering in midair. The seal of overturning the sea had already enveloped him from afar, and the divine power centipede had already activated its demonic chi to fly close to him. Shui Mingzi. Enchanting looked at the helpless expression on Shui Mingzi's face and said, This old man won't say anything else. Previously, we all fell into that old bastard Huda's trap. Now that we have offended Daoist Xiao is quite magnanimous. He doesn't want our lives, but he wants us to serve him for 1,000 years. I know. Without waiting for Enchanting to finish, Shui Mingzi waved his sleeves and said, Since I've made my choice, I won't regret it. However, this old man doesn't quite believe what Daoist Xiao said just now. Yes. Without waiting for Enchanting to speak, Xiaohua waved his hand and threw a jade box to Shui Mingzi. He said proudly, Take a look at this first. This is... Shui Mingzi was a little stunned. He picked up the jade box with a strange expression. When he opened the jade box, he saw a golden light flashing inside. It was a 10,000-year-old human essence. He was stunned for a long while before he came back to his senses. He hurriedly closed the jade box and said, I'm willing to serve Daoist Xiaohua for 1,000 years. All right. Xiaohua accepted Shui Mingzi's blood oath. Seeing that Shui Mingzi was about to return the jade box to him, he said with a smile, I'll bestow this item to you. No way. Shui Mingzi's mouth fell open. He couldn't believe his ears. Daoist Xiao, this item. I told you to take it, so take it. Xiaohua was displeased. He took out another jade box and threw it to Enchanting. I just happened to get some. Take it as a greeting gift. Enchanting had been curious for a long time. He took the jade box and hurriedly opened it to take a look. His eyes flashed with astonishment. He didn't stand on ceremony and hurriedly accepted the jade box. He bowed and said, Daoist Zhao's fortune is truly beyond our reach. We've searched several spell formations, but we couldn't find any useful ones. I didn't expect Daoist Xiao to obtain such a bountiful harvest in such a short period of time. I thank Daoist Xiao for his generous gift. And you're welcome. Xiaohua waved his hand. I don't have many of these items. You've all gotten a bargain. Thank you, Daoist Xiao. Seeing that Ao Zhantian accepted the jade box, Shui Mingzi hurriedly hid it away. You all have your own rewards. Xiaohua looked at the curious nascent soul cultivators and said with an indifferent expression. However, I can only bestow them to you after the Jadestage meeting. Thank you, Senior. Why did a group of nascent soul cultivators come to Jadestage Mountain? Wasn't it to obtain some rewards? Since Xiaohua had a treasure that even nascent soul late-stage cultivators liked, what was 1,000 years of service to him? Xiaohua kept the seal of overturning the sea. The Herculean centipede bared its fangs and brandished its claws beside Xiaohua, as if it was showing off. When Xiaohua opened his Taoist robe, it obediently flew back into it. Taoist Xiao, your demonic pet is truly powerful. If you refine it for another 100 years, I'm afraid it'll be able to compete with an upper 4th grade essence force cultivator. Shui Mingzi couldn't help but exclaim. Xiaohua smiled and replied, how would I have the time to refine it? Let it cultivate by itself. Shui Mingzi opened his mouth as if to say something, but he stopped himself. Daoist Xiao, what should we do now? Ao Zhantian said with a bitter expression. I can't help Daoist Xiao with my injuries on Jadestage Mountain. There's no need for you to help. Xiaohua's body flashed with golden light again, and the mountain river seal flew out. He said, come in and rest. I'll let you out once we leave Jadestage Mountain. This, Ao Zhantian wasn't like Su Tingzi. He frowned and said, if I enter the nation weapon, won't my life follow Daoist Xiao? If Daoist Xiao dies on Jadestage Mountain, won't I also be doomed? If you don't go in, can you walk out of Jadestage Mountain alive? Xiaohua replied. Moreover, do you think you can live longer than me? Shui Mingzi was also hesitant. He asked, Daoist Xiao, this nation weapon is used by Confucian cultivators to suppress our Daoist sections. Although we don't mind going in, can it suppress dozens of us at the same time? It's only 30 or so, no problem. Xiaohua said confidently. This junior is willing to go in. The injured nascent soul cultivator hurriedly said, as if he wanted to redeem himself by doing good deeds, but also as if he was really afraid of dying inside the formation. Xiaohua waved his hand, and a stream of dragon chi rushed out, immediately sucking him in. Of course, at the same time, Xiaohua pointed his hand and landed on the top of his head. When he lost consciousness, he used his mind to send him into the space. Although there was a first, the others were still hesitant. After all, this was different from swearing a blood oath and being controlled for 1,000 years. This was putting their lives in the hands of others. However, just as they were hesitating, a thunderous boom came from the distant horizon. Everyone looked up and saw the blood-red sky in the distance collapsing one after another. Between the collapses, there were thousands of flashes of lightning. After the blood-red sky collapsed, it turned into a blood-red stream that swept toward everyone. Damn Star-Lord Hall. Xiaohua saw this. And how could he not know what the Star-Lord Hall was planning? This was not much different from the Star-Lord Defense Formation on the Yaotai Mountain. They both wanted to kill most of the Taoist cultivators, leaving only those who had the means to escape death. Xiaohua swept his gaze and said coldly, this old man doesn't have time to waste with you. The formation has already begun to close, so this old man is going to find a way out. Senior, please wait a moment. This junior is willing to go in. A group of panicked cultivators hurriedly called out. They knew in their hearts that it was better to let Xiaohua lead them alone, rather than having so many people search in a mess. Xiaohua's abilities were unpredictable, and his chances of survival were much higher than theirs. Come in. Xiaohua sucked that person into the space again. This time, the others were finally moved, and in a short while 35 nascent soul cultivators were sucked into the space. This one will go in as well. Ao Zhantian narrowed his eyes and looked at the torrential flood in the distance. His eyes were filled with helplessness, and he looked at Shui Mingzi. How could Shui Mingzi let Xiaohua suspect him? Naturally, he tactfully said, no problem. This old man is afraid that this old man is powerless to escape from this collapsed formation. So I can only accompany fellow Taoist Ao. I'll have to trouble Taoist Xiao for everything. Please. Xiao Hua was overjoyed when he saw the two late nascent soul cultivators enter the trap. As he spoke, two streams of dragon chi swept the two into the space. After entering Xiao Hua's space, not to mention nascent soul cultivators, even spirit-severing cultivators were nothing but food for him. After sucking in dozens of nascent soul cultivators, Xiao Hua didn't have time to raise his head to the sky and laugh. His figure immediately floated up and flew in the opposite direction of the collapse formation. It was as if the entire space had collapsed. Xiao Hua had only flown for a short while when intense thunderclaps flashed in all directions. All kinds of bloody light flourished, and the aura of destruction became increasingly powerful. Senior, save me. In front of Xiao Hua's right hand, the cultivator named Xiong, he was in an extremely sorry state. His Taoist robe was askew, and his hair was also disheveled. A small flying shuttle flickered under his feet as he rushed toward Xiao Hua. Looking behind Xiong Yi, the bloody red torrential flood created a wave of over 10 meters tall, covering the sky and covering the earth as it chased after him. Xiao Hua frowned, and a whirlwind appeared under his feet. His figure turned into a gust of wind as he swept in front of Xiong Yi. With a wave of his hand, a golden light swept up Xiong Yi, and then he soared into the sky again. Just as Xiao Hua flew away, boom! In the place where Xiong Yi had just flown past, the space around him shattered. Lightning flashed and turned into a clear torrential flood. Xiao Hua still couldn't release his divine sense, but he had a feeling that this clear torrential flood was definitely not ordinary. He definitely couldn't touch even half a drop of it. Many thanks, Senior. After being rescued by Xiao Hua, Xiong Yi felt like he was flying forward like lightning. He had temporarily escaped his predicament and hurriedly expressed his thanks. Chapter 36-29. Hearing this, Xiao Hua withdrew his gaze and replied indifferently, "You're welcome." After he finished speaking, his heart skipped a beat and he asked, "Are there any other cultivators ahead?" "No," Xiong Yi answered honestly. "I've been flying for a long time and haven't seen any cultivators." Oh, hearing this, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and asked, How did you follow Hu de Jinren?" Hearing Xiao Hua ask about the ambush, Xiong Yi didn't dare to hide anything and hurriedly told him the whole story. As Xiao Hua expected, Hu de Jinren had the same plan as Xiao Hua. In addition to obtaining treasures in the Jade Pavilion Conference, he also wanted to win over a group of nascent soul cultivators. Therefore, long before the blood-red star streaked across the sky, there were already a dozen nascent soul cultivators gathered in the defensive formation of the Jade Mountain. Including Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi, there were already more than 30 cultivators in the defensive formation of the Sand Island. Taoist Hua De seemed to have heard of the famous mother-child spirit fruit in the Sand Continent, so he was able to find it before Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, Fairy Jing beat him to it, so Taoist Hua De and the others were left empty-handed. Just as Ao Zhantian had said, they had searched for a long time, but to no avail. When the ominous star appeared, dozens of cultivators were sucked into the blood-red light. When they reappeared, they found that apart from a few people who disappeared, most of them were still together. Therefore, Hu de Jinren immediately discussed with Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi to besiege Xiao Hua. Xiong Yi didn't know what the three of them discussed. Xiong Yi wanted to leave early, but he didn't dare to because of Hu de Jinren's fierce reputation. In the end, Xiao Hua defeated these cultivators in one fell swoop. "So, you didn't see Fairy Jing and Taoist Yuanqing?" Xiao Hua asked. Xiong Yi nodded. "Yes, the female cultivator who got the Ren Jing and the male cultivator who was with you didn't appear here. So this is only a point of the defensive formation. It's not the whole formation." Xiao Hua instantly thought of the space he appeared in before. There were no cultivators inside. Xiong Yi hurriedly shouted, Yes, that's right. I thought about it for a long time. This must be the only place that collapsed. As long as we find the way out, we can escape. And I understand. If that's the case, I have a 60% chance of escaping." Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed as he looked into the distance and nodded. "However, it's very inconvenient for this old man to bring you along. Senior, Junior is willing to work for Senior." Xiong Yi was used to Hu de Jinren's face. Xiao Hua's little tail had just been exposed, and he immediately agreed. That. In the end, Xiao Hua was not as thick-skinned as Daoist Huda. He said somewhat embarrassedly, Xiongyi, you misunderstood. What I mean is, Senior, you misunderstood as well. Xiongyi said with a smile. In fact, I came to the Yaotai meeting on one hand to get the rare treasure. On the other hand, I hope to find some useful people. After all, on the hidden immortal continent, there are very few Confucian cultivators that we can trust. It's best to find a Taoist cultivator to help us. As for the third objective, if I can meet an expert like Senior, I don't mind submitting to you. To tell you the truth, I met a fellow cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul stage, in the early stages of the Jade Pavilion meeting. I chatted with him for a while. Although I didn't agree at that time, I already had a plan in mind. Grand Mist Ancestor? Xiao Hua asked in a low voice after pondering for a while. Xiongyi was startled, and then his expression changed slightly. He said somewhat unnaturally, could it be that Senior is also? Grand Mist Ancestor is Grand Mist Ancestor, I am Xiao. Xiao Hua said indifferently, I won't force fellow cultivator Xiong. No. Xiongyi breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, how could he have any other choice? He hurriedly said with a smile, I once established a country, but later the country's monarch was bewitched by the Buddhist sect. I was disheartened and no longer paid attention to it. Now that I am free, I can serve Senior. Good. Xiao Hua nodded, close your eyes. I will suppress you into the mountain river seal. After we leave the Yaotai mountain, you can follow me. This. Xiongyi naturally hesitated, but after a moment he closed his eyes and said, I'll have to trouble Senior. Xiao Hua didn't say anything and immediately put him back into the mountain and river seal. Then he looked around. This place was similar to the void, so he had an inexplicable feeling of familiarity in his heart. After a short while he found something strange. However, this strange thing seemed to be mobile. Before Xiao Hua could fly over, it immediately disappeared. It was exactly the same as when Xiao Hua mysteriously appeared in Huada's encirclement. Whoosh! All of a sudden, around Xiao Hua, several clear streams of blood red rushed out like a waterfall. Although those streams of water weren't large, wherever they went, the entire space collapsed. The streams rushed out in a strange way, and Xiao Hua was caught unprepared. His figure flashed and dodged, but several drops of blood still splashed on his Taoist robe. Xiao Hua did not care. This kind of clear stream was powerful, but under his protective golden light, how could a few drops of clear stream pose a threat to him? However, when those several drops of clear water fell, a sizzling sound rang out. The golden light protecting Xiao Hua's body was actually annihilated in an instant, revealing an enormous flaw. The clear water actually seeped into the surface of Xiao Hua's body. Ouch! Xiao Hua was shocked that such a situation would occur due to his carelessness. Xiao Hua's Taoist robe was also torn in an instant, and a heart-wrenching pain came from the clear stream. Xiao Hua's abnormally strong body was actually invaded by this clear stream. Pooh! Xiao Hua hurriedly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of thick true energy. It landed on the corroded part of his body, and he barely managed to grab the few drops of clear stream. When Xiao Hua opened his transcendence vision, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He saw that within these drops of blood-red liquid, there were strands of dark red lines. Between the lines of lines, there were many small dots that contained great power. Xiao Hua was familiar with these small dots of light. It was the power of starlight. As for the dark red lines, Xiao Hua had seen them before. They were actually poison mixed with the power of the netherworld. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed angrily. The Confucian cultivator's arrangement was truly ruthless. Even his body, which had been tempered for many years, was unable to withstand it, let alone an ordinary cultivator. Even Enchanting wouldn't be able to escape easily when he encountered the clear stream of clear stream. Of course, Xiao Hua was only lamenting. This wasn't the first time he had encountered the Confucian cultivator's ruthlessness. His current plan was to escape from this place. There wasn't much time left for Xiao Hua, and the space he could escape was also limited. The confidence he had before had leaked out too much, and an indescribable sense of fear emerged from the bottom of his heart. What seemed like an ordinary escape had developed into a test of life and death. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. At the crucial moment, he opened his transcendence vision. However, all he saw with his transcendence vision was blood red. His vision was filled with resplendent starlight, and it was even inferior to the naked eye. How could he see the exit that could appear at any time? Helpless, Xiaohua could only close his transcendence vision again. He could see with his naked eye, and fly in a certain direction based on his intuition. Suddenly, Xiaohua's heart trembled. He recalled the place where he had first entered the defensive formation. Previously, when he heard Xiong Yi's description, he subconsciously thought that he had entered the defensive formation directly like them. However, now that he thought about it, before he was surrounded by Taoist Huoda and the others, he seemed to have stayed in a certain space for a short period of time. Moreover, that space also had a blood-red light, and it was extremely similar to the space he was in now. However, it didn't have much starlight. Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly raised his head to look at the starry sky. Sure enough, the ominous star with the tail was emitting a strange and mysterious light. The stars around this ominous star were abnormally resplendent, and this resplendent light was flashing with a bloody aura. One by one, the tails grew out of these stars. Needless to say, these stars should all be a part of this defensive formation. If others look at this place from the stars, they should also be a star that is also burning with brilliance. The space I entered earlier should also be a part of the defensive formation. However, that part is between the stars, or perhaps it's the fault of the defensive formation. Xiaohua suddenly realized. There. That's right, it's there. Since Xiaohua understood, it was very easy for him to find the place he came out from. Looking at the sky, there was clearly no mark. Even if one's divine sense swept over, it would be impossible to find that place different from other places. However, Xiaohua's eyes could see that it was the place he came from. Not good. Xiaohua identified the direction, and immediately cried out bitterly in his heart, because that place was already on the verge of the collapse of the defensive formation. The blood-red clear stream in the space would annihilate his only way out in a few moments. Xiaohua activated the lightning escape technique without hesitation. Although the wind escape technique had the advantage in this short distance, Xiaohua understood that his cultivation of the wind escape technique was far inferior to the lightning escape technique. At this time, if he used his full strength, there was still hope that he could arrive before the space collapsed. Rumble! Tens of thousands of tiny threads of lightning appeared on the surface of Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed towards the exit of the defensive formation. However, Xiaohua was already going all out. The nascent soul in his body was also rubbing its hands anxiously. Several bolts of lightning entered the void to help Xiaohua, but the blood-red stream soared into the sky. As long as it fell, Xiaohua's path of survival would be cut off. Although it was not certain that Xiaohua would die, the chances were slim. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua, quickly help me. At such a critical moment, Xiaohua's heart suddenly brightened, and he cried out in his mind. Little Sheng is coming. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua waved his hands, opened his mouth and recited. Drums and thunder resound. Swords and spears tremble in the wind and frost. For generals admonish, 10 generals start first. As soon as this inexplicable poem came out, it immediately turned into a bolt of lightning condensed from armor inscriptions. Inside Xiaohua's lower dantian, the 5 qi righteous thunder immediately rolled. Following this bolt of lightning, it rushed into Xiaohua's body and fell on the surface of his body. Boom! Xiaohua felt his body become light. A feeling of soaring immortality arose spontaneously. Immediately, Xiaohua's speed suddenly increased by several times. Like a stream of light, he rushed into the sky without anything special. Chapter 36:30. What's especially strange is that Xiaohua's entire body immediately disappears where he landed, only leaving behind faint lightning threads at the edge of the void. Those lightning threads only flashed for half a second before the bloody stream fell, and all the lightning threads were torn apart. The space also shattered. Damn it, so close. A passageway like a pillar of light appeared in front of Xiaohua. Without Xiaohua activating the lightning escape technique, his entire body began to flow in the passageway. However, the pressure in the passageway was abnormal, and there was also a rapid tearing force, causing his body to be pulled out of shape. Xiaohua activated his magic power to resist, feeling extremely lucky in his heart. If I didn't use the 5 Qi Righteous Thunder to activate the lightning escape technique, not only would it be impossible for my lightning escape technique to reach the realm of leaping thunder, it would also be impossible for me to break free from the defensive formation. Woo! Just as Xiaohua changed his mind, the pillar of light disappeared again. Xiaohua's body lightened, and he looked around again. Sure enough, all around him was crimson red light, not a single star. Phew! Xiaohua let out a long sigh of relief. Previously, he used all his strength to activate the lightning escape technique, and forcefully rushed into the realm of leaping thunder 3 realms. His entire body showed a kind of fatigue, as if the realm of lightning escape technique's 3rd grade was far from what a Yuanian cultivator could control. However, just as Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief, a gust of wind rolled up beside him, and what he had experienced before happened again. Damn it, can't you let me breathe a sigh of relief? Xiaohua sensed that his entire body was bound by a powerful force, and knew that the fault in space didn't allow cultivators to stay. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and curse. When the force disappeared, Xiaohua opened his eyes and saw everything in front of him clearly. He couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. Not to mention that Xiaohua had just escaped from the wolf's den and entered the tiger's den. The embarrassed Hua Dejinren was forced to take out the jade pendant by Xiaohua. He spat out a mouthful of true qi, and layers of inscriptions gushed out from the jade pendant to cover him. Soon after, a pillar of true qi emerged from the void, and carried Hua Dejinren into it and disappeared. When the pillar of true qi disappeared, Hua Dejinren's figure appeared above a layer of blood-red clouds. The blood-red clouds looked like cotton wool that covered the sky. There was no end to it at all. Above the clouds, there were groups of immortal soldiers in bright armor patrolling the area. As soon as Hua Dejinren revealed himself, he immediately attracted the attention of the nearby immortal soldiers. The leading immortal soldier held a sickle-like weapon in his hand and shouted, "Where did this cultivator come from? Is this a place where you can break in?" Cough cough. Taoist Master Huda coughed twice. He raised his eyes to look at this group of 3rd grade origin energy immortal soldiers. Raising the jade pendant in his hand, he indifferently said, "This old man is a star general under Hall Master Kong. It is precisely on the Hall Master's orders to enter the Jade Pavilion meeting. Your humble servant greets Sir Star General." The captain's eyes lit up when he saw the jade pendant in Hua Dejinren's hand. He immediately became respectful and clasped his hands. "This is my duty. I hope Sir can forgive me." "Yes, I understand." Hua Dejinren put away the jade pendant. Raising his eyes to look all around, he asked, "If this old man is not mistaken, this place is Star-Lord Wellwood Sprite Shangguan Yi Ran's jurisdiction. Quickly bring me to see Star-Lord Shangguan Yi Ran. What Sir said is correct. This place is precisely General Wellwood Sprite's jurisdiction." That immortal soldier saw Hua Dejinren was very familiar with the Jade Mountain Range. His last doubts were all gone, and he hastily replied, "However, General Wellwood Sprite has already perished inside the array. Now General Wood Dragon is in charge." "What? Sir Shangguan, he truly has fallen?" Hua Dejinren turned pale with fright, practically shouting in disbelief. Who has such magic energy?" However, when he asked this, Hua Dejinren suddenly thought of something and hastily shouted, Quickly bring me to see Sir Linghu. Quickly." That immortal soldier's face showed a difficult expression, and he said in a low voice, "Sir Star General, your humble servant is here to patrol. Without Sir Star General's orders, I absolutely do not dare leave. Furthermore, my Wellwood Sprite Star Array brothers have only recently come into contact with Sir Linghu. Your servant does not dare." "Impudent!" Hua Dejinren furiously roared. "This old man has an important matter to report to Hall Master Kong. This is an urgent matter. If there is a delay, can you bear the responsibility?" This. The immortal soldier hesitated and hastily asked, "I wonder what Sir's important matter is." "You are not qualified to know," Huda sneered. "However, this old man can reveal a little. If this matter is not false, it should be related to the fall of General Wellwood Sprite. Good sir, please follow your humble servant." When the immortal soldier heard that it was related to Shangguan Yi Rant's death, he did not dare to be negligent. He hastily ordered the rest of the immortal soldiers to continue patrolling. He took out a flying boat and placed it in the air. He invited Huda to board the flying boat, and he himself drove the flying boat to rush into the clouds. The flying boat produced clouds and carried the two of them to a place at lightning speed. Above the crimson clouds, there were many patrolling immortal soldiers. There were also many immortal generals riding flying beasts and patrolling everywhere. Huda standing on the flying boat naturally attracted the attention of the patrolling immortal soldiers. However, the immortal soldier driving the flying boat took out a small triangular flag from his bosom and stuck it on the bow of the boat. Those immortal soldiers and immortal generals who were about to fly over stopped. After the time to drink a cup of tea, more and more soldiers and horses appeared in front of them. Moreover, there was a row of tents above the clouds. The immortal soldier did not dare to drive the flying boat again. He asked Huda to disembark from the flying boat and said with a smile, "Sir, please wait a moment. This is the border between Wood Sprite Well and Wood Dragon Horn. This humble servant does not dare to cross. Sir Linghu should be in the barracks. This humble servant will send a message." After saying that, the immortal soldier pulled the triangular flag from the bow of the boat. He opened his mouth, and a mouthful of true chi fell on the triangular flag. The small flag turned into a streamer of light and disappeared into the barracks. A moment later, a tall immortal general flew out from inside the barracks. In his hand was that triangular flag. Looking at the immortal soldier and Huda he coldly said, "Who are you waiting for to issue the command flag? Is there some urgent military matter?" "Reporting to Sir, this humble servant is with Sprite Well's 13 Barracks 7th Squad Captain, Zhou Hong. The command flag was issued by this humble servant." That immortal soldier hastily bowed and saluted. "This is Hall Master Kong's Star General. He has news of the death of our with Sprite Well's general. And you and the others follow Mojia." When that immortal general heard this, he did not dare be neglectful. Turning around, he brought Huda and Zhou Hong to fly into the barracks. Entering the barracks, Huda gaze swept around. Seeing the murderous aura all around and many unkind gazes looking at him, he could not help but sneer in his heart. His arrogant gaze swept back one by one, forcing those immortal soldiers and immortal generals to look elsewhere. No more than origin energy 3rd or 4th grade strength. Yet you unexpectedly dare provoke this old man. If it was not for the Jade Mountain, Huda was defeated again and again. His heart was very sullen. Naturally, he would not put these cultivators with lower cultivations in his eyes. His heart secretly pondered. Not long after, that immortal general brought the two of them directly to the center's largest tent. "You and the others wait here," that immortal general indifferently instructed. He himself was about to enter when the Huda to the side raised his hand. Holding a jade pendant in his hand, he smiled and said, "I have the Hall Master personally bestowed the Star General writ. I can directly meet any general below the Hall Master. I think we don't need to wait outside the tent. My general's military orders are strict. Unless the Hall Master personally comes, or the Hall Master's personal secret order, no one can approach the Central Army tent." That immortal general glanced at Huda and proudly said, "Not to mention, although you are the Hall Master's Star General, you have the identity of a Taoist cultivator. How could I dare to let you and the others in?" Impudent. Huda was ashamed and angry. He shouted, "Hall Master's Star General writ is useful in the entire hidden immortal continent. How can it not be useful in your Wood Dragon's camp? What intentions do you all have? Do you all still place the Hall Master in your eyes?" Hearing Huda so arrogant, that immortal general's complexion slightly changed. Just as he was about to speak, a thunderclap suddenly sounded in his ear. "Impudent! Who dares to make a racket outside the Central Army tent?" Where is the Minister of Justice? When that immortal general heard, his face showed respect. He said in a low voice, "Reporting to General, it was your servant who brought." Not waiting for that immortal general to finish speaking, Hua de Jinren immediately put on a smiling face and raised his voice. "Ling Hu Darren, your servant is the Hua de Star General under Hall Master Kong. Long time no see. Is General's style still the same?" And that voice was slightly surprised, but he saw the Central Army tent's tent door open. A 5 chi tall lean man wearing leather armor and holding a sword in his bosom walked out. Looking up and down, he coldly said, "Hua de Star General? Is it you who is making a racket in front of the Central Army tent?" Hua de Jinren looked at that man, but he did not recognize him. He nodded and said, "Your servant is not making a racket, but your servant has the Hall Master's Star General command in his hand. Furthermore, your servant has information regarding Shangguan Darren's fall. I only ask you, is it you who is making a racket in front of the Central Army tent?" That man interrupted Hua de Jinren, coldly saying. Hua de Jinren looked at the man's cold expression. He could only brace himself and say, "Correct, just now it was your servant. According to the 4th article of the military order, those who make a racket in front of the Central Army tent, without reason will be beheaded without pardon." That man recited word by word. Immediately, he raised the sword in his bosom. Wang! The sword emitted a cold light, and the sword hilt again gave birth to inscriptions. When these inscriptions rolled, an ice-cold killing intent rushed forth from the surrounding barracks. This killing intent made Hua de Jinren have no choice but to shrink his neck. Clang! The sword in the man's hand let out a cry. A cold light rushed out from the sword scabbard, directly slashing towards Hua de Jinren. Even as strong as Hua de Jinren was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. In the instant the sword fell, the several chi of space around his body was completely confined. He simply did not have any possibility of dodging, as if he could only be tied up. Hua de Jinren turned pale with fright. A brilliance flashed above his head, and his nascent soul rushed out. His hands rubbed together, and a brilliance was born, wanting to block the sword. Unfortunately, the sword was incomparably sharp. The brilliance was immediately cut in half by the sword's edge. Chapter 36-31. Lord Linghu. Taoist Master Huda's nascent soul shrieked. That voice carried a timid tone as he said, "Your humble servant has news of Lord Shangguan Yiran's fall. This is a major military matter. If you dare avenge a private grudge, delaying Lord Hall Master's matters, not to mention Lord Hall Master will not forgive you. Even you 28-star lords will fall one by one." "Stop!" A shout came from inside the tent. That man's sword stopped in midair, as if cast from iron. Although Taoist Master Huda's body could not budge, the cold sweat on his forehead was already dripping. "Let them in." Following the dignified voice from inside the tent, the man put away his sword and retreated to the side. That immortal general raised his hand and said with a fake smile, "Star General Huda, please." Then, he threw the triangular banner to Zhou Hong and said, "You go in too." Zhou Hong was very terrified. Taking the banner, he hastily saluted. "Your humble servant has been ordered by Lord Star General to send him here. Now, since Lord Wood Dragon wants to see Lord Star General, your humble servant should return to patrol. Did you not hear Lord say to let you all go in?" The immortal general coldly smiled and said, "Yes, Lord." Zhou Hong did not dare argue. Answering, he hastily lowered his head and followed Taoist Master Huda into the tent. That Taoist Master Huda originally had an untamed heart. Now he suddenly hung in suspense. He was Kong Hongwu's Star General. Although his position could not compare to Star Lords like Jing Mushuan and Wood Dragon, his position in Star Lord Hall was somewhat aloof. Ordinarily, he did not need to have any dealings with these Star Lords. However, he had interacted with Jing Mushuan a few times and was considered familiar. He actually did not have any dealings with Wood Dragon. However, he had heard Jing Mushuan talk about the Wood Dragon. Therefore, he knew that the Wood Dragon was Kong Hongwu's confidant. Jing Mushuan hadn't said anything bad about the Wood Dragon. However, the disdain in her tone was very obvious. But as long as one was human, there would always be preconceived notions. Admittedly, Daoist Master Huida had never seen Wood Dragon before, but based on Jing Mushuan's words, he already had a somewhat bad impression of Wood Dragon. This time, he had heard that the Wood Dragon well had perished, and that the Wood Dragon horn had taken over. So he couldn't help but feel a little indignant. Unfortunately, Daoist Master Huida hadn't even seen the Wood Dragon yet. So the army outside the tent had already given him a show of strength, and this had made him lose face. Moreover, he couldn't help but have a bad feeling in his heart when he heard that the Wood Dragon had given Zhou Hong money. Sure enough, when Huida Jinren entered the tent, he saw that the inside of the tent was very simple. Other than a jade table, there was a pot on it. There were a few ordinary-looking token arrows in it. It was the middle-aged scholar sitting behind the jade table. The Confucian scholar held an ancient book in his hand and was reading it with great interest. There was not a trace of any special aura around his body. Even his eyes that were staring at the ancient book and his hand that was holding the book, other than being especially long and slender, he was no different from an ordinary student. Huida Jinren did not dare to be negligent. He walked to the center of the tent, clasped his hands, and respectfully said, "General Jin Yuda greets General Linghu." Zhou Hong behind Daoist Master Huida hastily knelt down. His mouth trembled as he said in a low voice, Little Zhou Hong greets General." Who would have thought that Linghu Pyron wouldn't even respond? His eyes didn't even move away from the book. Daoist Master Huida awkwardly clasped his hands and stood there. He was somewhat at a loss. He admittedly had practiced for thousands of years. But he was very clear in his heart that this Confucian scholar was not only older than him, but also stronger than him. Not to mention, there were many cultivators around the military camp who were on par with him. Therefore he slightly clenched his teeth. He didn't withdraw his clasped hands and slightly bowed waist. Anyway, his etiquette was enough. He wasn't afraid of Linghu Pyron playing any tricks. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Linghu Pyron seemed to have finished reading a page. He naturally dipped his hand in some saliva and turned to the next page. At this time, he raised his eyelids. His pitch-black eyes swept past Daoist Master Huida. Then his eyes fell on Zhou Hong. He faintly said, "Zhou Hong, do you know your crime?" "Ah, little. What crime did this little one commit?" Zhou Hong was baffled. He forgot to kowtow and hastily asked, "You didn't abide by military rules. You didn't patrol within your own defensive area. You rashly brought a Daoist disciple to my Hornwood Dragon Army's camp. Isn't this a great crime of colluding with the enemy?" "See, sir." Zhou Hong was stunned. He looked at Linghu Pyron, and then looked at Daoist Master Huida. He shouted, "Although this sir is a Daoist cultivator, but he holds the Hall Master's Star General Command Tablet. This little one has already examined it. There is no mistake. Moreover, this sir has news about Sir Well Mushua's death. He wants to report to the Hall Master about an important matter. This little one didn't dare to delay. So this little one sent this sir over. General Linghu, is there some misunderstanding here?" Daoist Master Huida also opened his mouth and said, "Although this general has never seen General, I can be acquainted with General Well Mushua. This is this general's Star General Command Tablet. General, please take a look." Unfortunately, Linghu Pyron simply didn't pay attention to him. His gaze coldly swept past. That fierce gaze seemed to be able to penetrate Daoist Master Huida's body. "How can you casually make a racket in the military camp? Did this general allow you to speak?" Daoist Master Huida's hand once again froze in place, not daring to move. He was afraid to hear that. "Where is the army advisor?" Fortunately, Linghu Pyron did not call for the army advisor. Rather, he extended his hand, and from who knows where, he pulled out a jade pupil tablet and tossed it to Zhou Hong. He faintly said, "Take a look." Yes. Zhou Hong very carefully received it. Clear light flashed in his eyes, but a moment later, his face was deathly pale. Large beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. Immediately he kowtowed. "General, spare me." This little one did not know that this Sir's Star General Command Tablet had already been abolished. This little one did not receive the order at all. "Where is the army advisor?" Linghu Pyron did not waste words ordering. "Yes, sir." The army advisor's hand clasped a sword as he entered. Ling Hupiren took out a token arrow from the token pot and said, "Go investigate whether or not this Zhou Hong spoke the truth. If it is, see who dares to delay the military. Bring that person's head. If Zhou Hong is lying, bring Zhou Hong's head." After he finished speaking, an inscription flew out of Ling Hupiren's mouth and landed on the token arrow. That token arrow floated with a bloodlight and flew into the army advisor's hand. "Yes, sir." The army advisor received the order. He extended his hand and dragged the trembling Zhou Hong out of the tent. The pitiful Zhou Hong. Anyway it was put, he was still a third-grade essence energy cultivator, equivalent to a Taoist golden core cultivator. Now he was taken away like a little chick. Hiss. Taoist Huda sucked in a cold breath. He understood in his heart that this was not Ling Hupiren trying to intimidate him. Rather, he had rashly entered Yaotai Mountain, offending Kong Hongwu. Thinking of Ling Hupiren's ruthlessness, Taoist Huda did not dare say a word. He only clutched the Star General Command tablet that he had previously been proud of. Now it had already become trash. He calmly stood there, the veins on his hands slightly protruding. "You are now a Taoist cultivator. According to my military discipline, trespassing into my army is to be beheaded." Ling Hupiren set down the scroll in his hand and indifferently said, "However, you were previously Lord Hall Master's Star General. You have made some contributions to my Star Lord Hall. I cannot arbitrarily decide." Phew. Hearing this, Taoist Huda's hanging heart immediately settled. The veins on his hand disappeared, and he hastily bowed. "Many thanks for General Ling Hu's tolerance. Would Lord Hall Master?" Ling Hupiren rose and walked to the front of the command table. He fished out a diamond-shaped command tablet from his bosom and used his hand to pat the top of his head. Three-colored true qi bubbled forth, falling onto the command tablet. The command tablet gave birth to an auspicious cloud that floated behind the command table. Immediately, a wisp of overwhelming qi emerged from the void and gathered above the auspicious cloud. In an instant, Kong Hongwu's figure appeared. "This general greets Lord Hall Master." Ling Hupiren bowed in salute. Taoist Huda did not dare be neglectful, also saluting. "This general greets Lord Hall Master." Kong Hongwu waved his hand and said, "Ling Hu, rise." "Yes, Lord." Ling Hupiren straightened up, no longer speaking. Kong Hongwu's gaze swept past Taoist Huda and coldly said, "This old man is Star Lord Hall's Hall Master, but you are not Star Lord Hall's Star General. There is no need to call yourself this general. This old man knows that my Star Lord Hall's temple is small and cannot accommodate a great deity like the Taoist. The Taoist can freely search for his own destiny on this Jade Mountain." "Lord Hall Master." Taoist Huda's face was deathly pale. He said in a low voice, "This old man knows that he has disturbed Lord Hall Master's plans. This crime cannot be forgiven. This old man does not seek to obtain Lord Hall Master's forgiveness. This old man only wishes to report a few secrets that this old man knows to Lord Hall Master. Afterwards, this old man himself will enter the array to meet his death. Speak." Kong Hongwu's face was still calm as water as before, indifferently saying, Taoist Huda did not dare beg for forgiveness too much, nor did he dare speak of his previous contributions. He was afraid that Kong Hongwu would not give him the chance to speak. Now that he was allowed to speak, his heart was already secretly delighted. He hastily said, "Good Lord Hall Master knows. This old man discovered a cultivator who concealed his cultivation at the Jade Pavilion gathering. Furthermore, this old man previously knew that General Jing Mushuan fell inside the Imperial Array. In all likelihood, Lord Hall Master has not yet found the true culprit, so this old man braved death to report to Lord Hall Master." "Who?" Kong Hongwu's brows trembled. It was as Taoist Huda said. In his fury, Kong Hongwu already dispatched people to begin investigating the truth. However, the entire Jade Mountain was inside the Great Array, especially after the array changed. With Jing Mushuan falling, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals in the Star Array were already somewhat disorganized. The news of Taoist Huda's Star General token being crippled did not reach Zhou Hong's place. This was clear proof. Furthermore, The immortal generals that had seen Xiao Hua were more or less killed by Xiao Hua. Kong Hongwu honestly could not find the Xiao Hua that killed Jing Mushuan for the time being. Xiao Hua. Taoist Huda did not dare beat around the bush, directly saying Xiao Hua's name. As expected, it was him. Kong Hongwu's eyes slightly narrowed, as if this did not exceed his expectations. Furthermore, Linghu Pairen's brows rose, his eyes flashing with a strange light. Taoist Huda was slightly startled. This information was his final straw. Now it seemed that it truly was a straw. He hastily shouted, "Lord Hall Master is wise. It is Xiao Hua." Chapter 36-32. Hearing Taoist Master Huda be so certain, Kong Hongwu looked at him with interest, indifferently asking, "How do you know?" Taoist Master Huda was delighted in his heart, hastily recounting Xiao Hua's actions in detail. Finally, he added, "This one heard that General Shengguan was killed, and Xiao Hua just happened to be nearby. This guy is most adept at hiding his cultivation. This must be his doing. Linghu, what do you think?" Kong Hongwu seemed to have thought of something, unexpectedly smiling as he asked Linghu Pairen. Linghu Pairen glanced at Taoist Master Huda, bowing to Kong Hongwu. This one is more interested in Xiao Hua, however. It seems that there is already no meaning now. This one will personally kill him, use his head as a sacrifice to General Shengguan. This one is also willing to atone for his crimes and assist General Linghu in killing Xiao Hua, to avenge General Shengguan. Taoist Master Huda immediately seized the opportunity, bowing as he spoke. "Atone for your crimes?" Kong Hongwu coldly looked at Taoist Master Huda, not knowing what he was thinking. Just at this moment, the Linghu Pairen to the side suddenly interjected, "Lord Hall Master." Although Star General Huda was momentarily bewitched by the treasure, seeing as he has done many things for my Star Lord Hall over the years, even if there is no merit, there is hard work. Furthermore, he entered the Jade Pavilion gathering, and by a freak combination of factors, he brought such important news to my Star Lord Hall. In this one's opinion, it would be better to let him go kill Xiao Hua, to atone for his crimes. Good. Kong Hongwu slightly nodded, saying, "Jing Yuda, if you can kill Xiao Hua, this old man will withdraw this order. You will still be my Star Lord Hall's Star General. Furthermore, if you can reach a higher level of enlightenment and refine your fire Qi Chaoyuan to the realm of 5th rank origin energy, the position of Wellwood Dragon is not necessarily yours." Many thanks, Lord Hall Master." Taoist Master Huda was overjoyed, hastily bowing in salute. "This one will not disappoint Lord Hall Master. Go, this one awaits your good news." Kong Hongwu waved his hand and said, "Yes, Lord Hall Master." Taoist Master Huda rose, and Linghu Pairen earnestly said, "Star General Huda, this is your last chance. You must seize it. Once you leave the tent, there will be soldiers to escort Star General back. Thank you for your mercy, sir. I will repay you in the future." Huda Taoist cupped his hands towards Linghu Pairen and turned to leave the tent. Before the soldiers came to lead him, Huda Taoist saw that the adjunct who had just walked out of the tent had landed on a flying boat. In his hand was the head of an immortal general. From the looks of it, it was not Zhou Hong. When the adjunct's gaze swept over Huda Taoist actually felt a slight chill on his neck. Inside the large tent, Kong Hongwu saw Taoist Huda leave. He looked at Linghu Pairen with a smile and asked, "Linghu, I didn't expect that Xiao Hua to be so powerful. Even Taoist Huda isn't his match. It seems that I'm going to lose the bet with you earlier." Linghu Pairen also withdrew his previous seriousness and said with a smile, "Could it be that Milord already knew of Xiao Hua's prowess and expelled Taoist Huda from the Star Lord Hall first? If this evil creature," Kong Hongwu snorted from his nose, "he actually dared to disobey my arrangement and enter the Jade Pavilion meeting without permission. He deserves to be punished. Furthermore, he's still so bold at this time, wanting to borrow the hand of my Star Lord Hall to kill Xiao Hua. Could it be that he feels that I can't see through his thoughts?" Linghu Pairen nevertheless smiled and said, "It's true that he didn't listen to the arrangement. It's also true that he wanted to borrow the Jade Pavilion meeting to accumulate his own power." But if he wanted to borrow the Hall Master's hand to kill Xiao Hua, that might not necessarily be the truth. He merely walked through a few defensive arrays. How could he know that the cultivators nearby were powerful? According to his thinking, the only one who could kill Shengguan Yi Ran could only be Xiao Hua. He was forced into a corner by Xiao Hua and used the Star General command plate bestowed by the Hall Master to break free of the defensive array. Hearing that Shengguan Yi Ran was killed, he naturally wanted to claim credit. Of course, he must also be nervous in his heart, afraid of being punished by the Hall Master. You don't know how bold he is. Kong Hongwu shook his head and said, "Didn't you hear? He actually covets the position of Star Lord. Such an important position of my Star Lord Hall. Can it be left for him?" A single Jade Pavilion meeting will undoubtedly reveal the greed of Dao sect cultivators. Those with low cultivations want to obtain spirit herbs from the Jade Pavilion meeting. Those with suitable cultivations want to obtain the lot of the state preceptor. Those with high cultivations want to accumulate their own power and obtain strange treasures. They are fully aware that the Jade Pavilion meeting is controlled by my Star Lord Hall, and that there is only a slim chance of survival. But for their greed, they did not hesitate to swallow the bait. Men die for wealth and birds die for food. The ancient saying is true. Haha, what Lord said is true. But if Huda wants to become a Star Lord, he must first think of escaping from Xiao Hua's hands. Linghu Piran narrowed his eyes and replied, "Borrowing a knife to kill? Linghu, your calculations are quite shrewd." Kong Hongwu said with a smile, "It's all thanks to Lord Hall Master's guidance." Linghu Piran said with a smile, "Fighting with Dao sect cultivators is not about strength, but about methods. It's endless fun. Are you not interested in this, Xiao Hua?" Kong Hongwu said. Hearing Huda's words, this old man wants to personally see this Dao sect cultivator valued by Grand Mist Ancestor. Grand Mist Ancestor? Linghu Piran raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "Since we can't accept him as a Star General, we can't let him leave the Jade Pavilion Mountain. This general is naturally very interested in him. Ha ha ha. If you want to make a move, you have to wait until Xiao Hua escapes from Huda's hands alive." Kong Hongwu laughed. "Unfortunately, this Sun, Moon, and Star 3 arrays can't compare to my Star Lord Hall's previous Imperial array. It's difficult to see the situation everywhere. Otherwise, this old man really wants to see the liveliness inside now. Although Xiao Hua is powerful, he can't be considered outstanding." Hearing Tailfire Tiger Ouyang Jingran's message, as soon as the star array came out, she had an extremely powerful person gather over 100 Dao sect cultivators and kill many dissatisfied cultivators to obtain 70% of the treasures. That cultivator is called Master Sun Kong. He's a proud and arrogant person. Kong Hongwu naturally knew. He nodded and said, "Presumably, you also know this person." Dao sect cultivators often use the titles child and Taoist master. He disdains them and calls himself master. His arrogance can be seen. So Ouyang wants to subdue him and make him a Star General. Impossible. Kong Hongwu shook his head. Previously, this old man also sent people over. This bastard simply didn't buy it. Star Sun Horse Taisher Zhanran also has a Zhang Daoran. Now he also stands out. Linghu Piran said again. Kong Hongwu shook his head again. Although this Zhang Daoran didn't establish a country, and is considered a Dao sect disciple indifferent to fame and fortune, he is extremely famous in Jingzhou. Long before this old man recruited Huda, I personally visited him. Unfortunately, I didn't meet him. This time, he can come to the Jade Pavilion gathering. I'm afraid it's related to that green nether dragon saliva. This kind of thing that even Huda doesn't listen to orders is absolutely tempting in the eyes of other Dao sect disciples. Hall Master is right. According to Taisher, that Zhang Daoran was recognized by Jingzhou's Dao sect disciples and was elected as their leader. Even if he wanted to decline, he couldn't. If nothing unexpected happens, he will ultimately run into Master Sun Kong. No, he should run into Star Plucking Child first. Kong Hongwu smiled. Star Plucking Child? That Yongzhou's Dao sect genius, known to be the closest to out-of-body formation? Hearing Star Plucking Child's name, even Linghu Piran's expression changed. He unexpectedly also came to the Jade Pavilion gathering. AI not bad. Kong Hongwu sighed. This old man is Star-Lord Hall's hallmaster. Unexpectedly, I didn't even know that star-plucking child sneaked into Jade Mountain. This is truly a dereliction of duty. This isn't strange. Dao sect magic is strange of every description, far surpassing what we Confucian sect cultivators learn. Ling Hupiren smiled. Unfortunately, Dao sect magic inverts the cart before the horse. They only seek power, but do not know their roots. They are far from the vast and majestic qi of our Confucian sect cultivators. Although star-plucking child is known to be a rare genius, compared to Hall Master, he is still far inferior. Don't compare this old man with those little dolls. Kong Hongwu didn't get angry and smiled. This old man is going. If you want to deal with Xiaohua, you must be careful. If he can kill Shengguan, he can also kill you. You can't be careless. Many thanks for Hall Master's reminder. This general will be careful. Ling Hupiren bowed. Jing Mubao and the other soldiers are unconvinced in their hearts. If this general doesn't kill Xiaohua and the others, how can they be convinced? After sending Hall Master off, this general will go take a look. Kong Hongwu nodded slightly. Thousands of whirlpools swirled around his body. His entire body turned into nothingness. Along with a burst of qi, he gradually disappeared. After Kong Hongwu left, Ling Hupiren straightened up and walked out of the command tent. His gaze swept over the bloody head on the flagpole outside the tent. His figure floated up, crossing several rows of allied forces, and arrived at a place covered in clouds. Ling Hupiren spat out a mouthful of true qi. The clouds within a radius of several dozen zhang were pushed aside, revealing a space covered in starlight. Looking at the several brilliant stars, a trace of a mysterious smile appeared on Ling Hupiren's face. As for Xiaohua, he flew out from the void. Seeing the situation in front of him, he couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. This was a huge sphere. Although only half of it was visible in the sky, and the lower half couldn't be seen, this half was already so big that Xiaohua couldn't see its edge. When Xiaohua looked at the outside of the huge sphere, he saw a long, flat ribbon-like object surrounding the sphere. The ribbon looked fixed, but upon closer inspection, it was slowly rotating. When Xiaohua realized that his divine sense was not restricted in this place, he activated his divine sense again. He discovered that the ribbon was actually made up of huge rocks. If the huge rocks were on flat ground, they would be as big as a mountain. Xiaohua's divine sense was not restricted in this place, but when he activated his divine sense again, he discovered that the ribbon was actually made up of huge rocks. If those huge rocks were on flat ground, they would be as big as a mountain. Although this magnificent scene was astonishing, it wasn't enough to make Xiaohua exclaim in a low voice. Xiaohua was the most shocked, because the scene here was quite similar to the scene when he accompanied Fairy Hong Xia to see the Kai family's ancestral shrine in Million Meng Mountains. Star, moon, starry sky. Could it be that there's a big secret hidden in it? Seeing the starry sky, Xiaohua couldn't help but be surprised. Chapter 36-33. Looking up at the seemingly endless starry sky, Xiaohua's heart was filled with doubt. He couldn't help but think to himself, my Dao sect has the heavenly Dao, and I have the heavenly Dao starry sky in my space. Even Xiaohua of the heavenly Dao hasn't made any significant progress in comprehending the mysteries of the heavenly Dao after nearly 200 years. Now, the heavenly Dao starry sky has appeared again and again in the Confucian cultivators' formation. Oh right. Aren't the seals on Lu Yi and the others also made of Star Force? Star Moon Palace. That's right, there's also the Star Moon Palace. The Star Moon Palace that Zhu Qing mentioned. Just as Xiaohua was thinking, a giant boat slowly flew out from the side of the sphere. There were many cultivators standing on the boat. As soon as the boat appeared, several powerful divine senses swept out from the boat and landed on Xiaohua, immediately locking onto him. Xiaohua's thoughts were interrupted, and he unconsciously frowned. He didn't move and just stood there quietly. When the flying boat got closer, Xiaohua could clearly see that there was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion standing at the bow of the boat. He was wearing a brocade robe and had an indifferent expression. When he saw Xiaohua, he actually smiled and nodded at him. The old man seemed to have a secret technique to hide his cultivation. Xiaohua looked at him and could only see that he was around the mid-nascent soul stage. As for the specific situation, Xiaohua didn't plan on using a secret technique to find out. Taoist Master Xiao. A slightly surprised voice came from the boat, and a female cultivator flew out. It was Fairy Jing, who Xiaohua had seen before. Oh, so it's Fairy Jing's old acquaintance. That's good. Behind the old man, a young cultivator released his divine sense to lock onto Xiaohua. When he saw Fairy Jing fly down, he relaxed and withdrew his divine sense. Xiaohua saw Fairy Jing fly over and rubbed his chin. He looked at the boat and seemed to understand something. Sure enough, Fairy Jing landed and bowed. Greetings, Taoist Master Xiao. No need to be polite. Xiaohua waved his hand and smiled. What's the matter with this boat? Taoist Master. The senior on the boat is the famous senior Zhang Daoran of Jing Province. Fairy Jing said with a smile. After I parted ways with Taoist Master, I entered the star formation and immediately fell into a frenzied battle. My cultivation was limited, and I could only protect myself in the chaotic battle. Just as my Taoist cultivators were about to die in the battle, Senior Daoran appeared on his flying boat and stopped everyone in time. Senior Daoran invited us to enter the star formation. With our strengths as Taoist, we can go to the end of the star formation. Oh, Taoist Masters Taoist Zhang with Taoist Masters with Taoist? Taoist Masters Taoist with Daren's Master with Taoist, Taoist. Taoist with Taoist, T. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and asked, Fellow Taoist Jing, have you been ambushed by Confucian cultivators in this star formation? Yes. Fairy Jing nodded. I personally saw more than 10 golden core disciples fall in the formation. Yes. Xiaohua nodded. This Zhang Daoran wouldn't be the same as Taoist Huada, a sanctimonious person, right? Even if Taoist has never seen Senior Daoran, could it be that you have never heard of his name? Fairy Jing was even more stunned than Xiaohua. No. Xiaohua was quick to reply. Spiritual master must be joking with me. How could any Taoist cultivator of the hidden immortal continent not know Senior Daoran? Fairy Jing covered her mouth and smiled. Her eyes were like ripples of water. All right. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. This old man admits that he has heard of it, but this old man's impression of it isn't very deep. Of course, Taoist is a senior with a similar cultivation level as Senior Daoran. Taoist is so low-key, even more so than Senior Daoran. Naturally, you wouldn't pay attention to Senior Daoran's deeds. Fairy Jing smiled and said, but this old man can guarantee that there are 50 people on the giant ship, including some golden core disciples. If they don't believe in Senior Daoran, how can they get on the flying ship? Li Jing, the nascent soul cultivator who withdrew his divine sense, became impatient and said loudly, if this fellow Taoist doesn't want to, then don't let him come up. There are many people who want to get on the flying ship. Fellow Taoist, this old man is Zhang Daoran of Jing Province. The old man also smiled and cupped his hands. The cultivator was surprised to see Zhang Daoran salute to Xiaohua. After all, Xiaohua was only at the early or middle nascent soul stage. He couldn't be considered a powerful figure on the flying ship. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He also cupped his hands and said, this one is Xiaohua of Yu Province. Oh, so it's Taoist Xiao. Zhang Daoran smiled and said, although this old man hasn't heard of Taoist Zhao's name before, it's fate that brought us together to participate in the Jade Stitch gathering. Today, we've all encountered a rare change in the Jade Stitch gathering. If we don't work together, I'm afraid we'll all die on the Jade Stitch mountain. Although this old man can't see through fellow Taoist's true cultivation level, it's needless to say that fellow Taoist's cultivation level is profound. Now that we're in a crisis, would fellow Taoists please get on the flying ship and lend this old man a hand? On the giant ship, the cultivators were in an uproar. What kind of cultivation level could be praised by Zhang Daoran? Although Xiaohua looked ordinary, he couldn't be underestimated. Fairy Jing's face showed a trace of pride, as if she was also praised by Zhang Daoran. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then raised his voice and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, this Xiao isn't being pretentious. This Xiao wants to get on the flying ship. But this Xiao has the blood of Star Lord Hall's immortal soldiers and immortal generals. This Xiao is afraid that if this Xiao gets on the flying ship, Kacha." Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, on the other side of the giant sphere, several thunderbolts appeared out of thin air, flashing into an oval several dozen feet in size in the void. Boom! With a loud sound, a grayish-white spike pierced through the void. Then, the oval several dozen feet in size shook violently, slowly cracking and breaking into pieces. After the spike pierced out, the shape of a small boat immediately rushed through the void. Then, the entire space was torn apart, and a flying ship similar to Zhang Daoran's giant ship rushed in. However, this giant ship had two sharp ends and a long and narrow middle. There were also several dozen cultivators standing on this giant ship. These cultivators appeared with the giant ship. Seeing that the entire defense formation was quiet, they immediately cheered, as if they had just escaped from danger like Xiaohua. Everyone was cheering, except for a young cultivator at the front who didn't make any movements. Just as he came out with the giant ship, he immediately stared at Zhang Daoran on the other flying ship. "Zhang Daoran? You actually came." The young man spoke amidst everyone's cheers. "Esteemed Sun Kong, if you can come, then this old man can come as well." Zhang Daoran's voice was equally loud, and didn't seem to be inferior to esteemed Sun Kong's. "Esteemed Sun Kong?" Xiaohua looked at the young man's arrogant expression, and the corner of his mouth curled up due to his arrogance. He whispered, "Fairy Jing, who is this esteemed Sun Kong?" "This? I don't know," Fairy Jing said with a smile. "He should be a senior like esteemed Sun Kong, who is focused on cultivation." "Focused on cultivation?" Xiaohua smiled. Esteemed Sun Kong sneered. "It seems that even Brother Daoran can't resist the temptation of the Azure Abyss Dragon saliva." Zhang Daoran didn't deny it and nodded. "That's right. This old man's thoughts coincide with esteemed Sun Kong's." But, esteemed Sun Kong's eyes flashed fiercely. "Unfortunately, there is only one Azure Abyss Dragon saliva, and I heard that it can't be split. Who do you think this treasure should belong to? Perhaps you, perhaps me, or perhaps some disciple of the Tao sect." Zhang Daoran smiled. "However, this should be decided after we obtain the Azure Abyss Dragon saliva." "Haha, I'm thinking the exact opposite." Master Sun Kong roared with laughter as he said, "To deal with external threats, one must first pacify the internal situation. If we don't make things clear now, then wouldn't there be great chaos once the treasure appears?" With that, esteemed Sun Kong glanced at the cultivators on Zhang Daoran's flying boat, and said with a fake smile, "Could it be that Brother Daoran didn't rush out from the chaos, and use this flying boat to bring these Tao sect disciples together?" With that, esteemed Sun Kong's divine sense swept toward Xiaohua. He originally didn't care about Xiaohua, so his divine sense also swept past Xiaohua. However, just as his divine sense swept past Xiaohua, he suddenly seemed to have discovered something. His expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly withdrew his divine sense. He looked at Xiaohua, who was quietly standing to the side, and seemed to have thought of something. "Good. How could Zhang Daoran be afraid of esteemed Sun Kong?" He nodded. "Fellow Taoist Sun Kong is right. Now that we have just escaped from the chaos, you should give me a rule. As long as it's fair, this old man will comply." However, esteemed Sun Kong's words were somewhat thought-provoking. He smiled and said, "This old man carefully thinks about it." Brother Daoran's words make sense. We haven't even seen the treasure yet, so how can there be internal strife? "Oh." Zhang Daoran looked at esteemed Sun Kong with a smile that wasn't a smile, then looked at Xiaohua, who was next to Fairy Jing. Of course, he understood that esteemed Sun Kong had already seen through Xiaohua's extraordinariness, and thought that Xiaohua had made an alliance with him. However, he didn't point it out and said, "In that case, Brother Sun Kong, this old man will introduce you to Taoist Master Xiaohua of the Yu Province." "Xiaohua." Esteemed Sun Kong frowned and his eyes turned slightly. He seemed to be in a meeting, but after a short moment he gave up. This name was indeed unfamiliar. He had never heard of it. Taoist Master Zhao's name is also unfamiliar to this old man. Esteemed Sun Kong asked bluntly, "May I know which country Taoist Master cultivates in?" When Zhang Daoran heard esteemed Sun Kong's address of Xiaohua, he couldn't help but smile. Esteemed Sun Kong calling Xiaohua Taoist Master meant that he treated Xiaohua as an equal. This was truly rare for the usually unruly esteemed Sun Kong. Chapter 36-34. I've been cultivating in the Black Wind Mountain Range. So far, I've never been in charge of a country. Xiaohua saw that Master Sun Kong's attitude towards him could be considered amiable, so he replied with a smile. The purpose of coming to the Jade Pavilion meeting this time is to get the Imperial Preceptor's lot. Oh, Master Sun Kong immediately let out a sigh of relief, but he still didn't let down his guard. He asked curiously, "Fellow Taoist, with your cultivation, you've never been in charge of a country? I can't believe it." "Is it strange?" Xiaohua asked back. "Why can't you believe it?" It's not strange, not strange." Zhang Daoran didn't know Xiaohua's character, and he didn't want Xiaohua to have friction with Master Sun Kong, so he hurriedly said, "Taoist Zhao's luck is exceptional, and your aptitude is outstanding. You can naturally cultivate to such a level without being in charge of a country." "Xiaohua, are you helping Zhang Daoran, or are you helping me?" At this point, how could Master Sun Kong not see that Xiaohua had nothing to do with Zhang Daoran? So he immediately said straightforwardly. Xiaohua actually liked this kind of straightforward character, so he didn't hide it and said, "I've already achieved my purpose of coming here. I don't have any desire for those 3 treasures. Brothers, perhaps your lifespans are coming to an end, and you need treasures to extend your lives. But I'm still young, so I don't need them for the time being. So I won't fight with you. Of course, we're all Taoist disciples. Although we're not from the same sect, in this Jade Pavilion meeting, we don't necessarily have to fight. It's best if we can resolve this without killing each other. This way, we won't let Star-Lord Palace see us as a joke." Taoist Xiao said it so easily. "Don't tell me you didn't act ruthlessly when you got the Imperial Preceptor's lot." Master Sun Kong sneered disapprovingly. Xiaohua nodded and said with a smile, "Indeed, I killed several Taoist disciples who wanted to plot against me, and I also killed many immortal soldiers and generals." Saying this, Xiaohua looked at Fairy Jing and said, "When I killed the Taoist disciples, this Fairy Jing was also beside me." Fairy Jing's face was filled with fear. After all, Master Sun Kong was infamous. However, she still took half a step forward and said with a smile, "Junior and Taoist Xiao didn't know each other before. We just met." Fairy Jing then explained the previous situation and said, "If Taoist Master Xiao wasn't open and aboveboard, he would have killed 2 Taoist cultivators in front of me. How would I dare to invite him again?" "Good. Well done. You killed to your heart's content." Sun Kong clapped his hands and said, "I like daring men like you. Damn it, do you have any yellow paper chicken blood? I'll be your sworn brother." Burning yellow paper to cut chicken blood? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. These words were from his distant memories. After he started cultivating, other than that Qian Di Hung, no one else had this kind of spirit. Even in the hidden immortal continent, he had never heard of such an ancient tradition. Hearing this, Zhang Daoran rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "We're not in a hurry to be sworn brothers. Now, we still need to temporarily establish an offensive and defensive alliance. This time's Jade Pavilion gathering is different from the past. We'll meet in life and death. Although we want to get the treasure, we can't let the Taoist disciples die." Before Zhang Daoran could finish speaking, a loud whistling sound came from above everyone's head. Everyone raised their heads and saw a meteor-like brilliance streaking across the sky, rushing towards the ribbon-shaped area beside the huge sphere. Boom! With a loud bang, a big hole was blasted open in the ribbon-shaped object. The brilliance also stopped in the midst of the fire, and inside it was a jade box that was about a foot long. "Quick, don't let others snatch it." On Zhang Daoran's huge boat, several people clamored. Immediately, 3 people couldn't hold back and flew toward the jade box in the distance. Zhang Daoran's face immediately became embarrassed. Humph. Just when Zhang Daoran was about to scold them, Sun Kong Shangren snorted coldly, and an inexplicable chill appeared in the air. Then, Sun Kong Shangren opened his mouth and spat out a small green whip. The whip grew with the wind. When Sun Kong Shangren caught it with one hand, the whip had already become 3 feet long. Humph. How dare you attack in front of this old man? You really deserve to die. Sun Kong Shangren sneered again and waved his hand. Roar! The whip rushed into the air, and immediately turned into a long green dragon. A gust of wind that could cut people's faces flew toward the 3 nascent soul cultivators who flew out. Zhang Daoran saw the brilliance flashing around Sun Kong Shangren, and knew that Sun Kong Shangren was angry. He hurriedly shouted, Brother Sun Kong, just teach them a lesson. Fu Jian. Exalted Master Sun Kong even sneered. As he spoke, his figure flew up with a bang, and with a flick of his Taoist robe, an azure green brilliance suddenly appeared and transformed into 100 feet in size that grabbed towards the 5 cultivators out of thin air. You! Zhang Daoran's expression changed slightly when he saw Master Sun Kong become even more aggressive. His Taoist robe rippled, and it seemed like he was about to make a move. However, just at this moment, a faint voice echoed in his ears. Brother Daoran, don't be anxious. Let's see how Brother Sun Kong deals with this. Zhang Daoran let out a cold snort and withdrew his magic power. What can this old ghost do? Sure enough, when the dragon whip fell, 2 of the cultivators were shocked and used their magic treasures to block. However, when the whip fell, 2 shadows appeared and pounced on the 2 of them. There was a loud rumble, and their magic treasures were knocked out. The 2 nascent soul cultivators trembled, and their faces turned pale as they fell several dozen feet. The other cultivator saw this and hurriedly shouted, Senior Daoran, save us. At this moment, Sun Kong Shangren's hand fell, and the cultivator hurriedly used his magic treasure to resist. Poof! Unfortunately, his magic treasure couldn't withstand Sun Kong Shangren's hand and was crushed. When the hand exploded, the cultivator was also heavily injured and stopped in the air. Zhang Daoran heard the cultivators cry for help and hurriedly shouted, Master, please forgive us. With that, Zhang Daoran glanced at Xiao Hua. If it wasn't for Xiao Hua, he would have already attacked. He was quite apprehensive of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua smiled. After all, he didn't care too much about his face. Although these 3 cultivators were on Zhang Daoran's boat, they didn't wait for Zhang Daoran's order to snatch the jade box. They clearly didn't put Zhang Daoran's order in their eyes. At this moment, Sun Kong Shangren was teaching the 3 of them a lesson. Although it somewhat brushed away Zhang Daoran's face, Xiao Hua felt that Sun Kong Shangren did the right thing. However, things still went beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. After Master Sun Kong killed the 3 of them, he didn't stop. A ruthless expression appeared on his face, and then he made a grabbing motion. The green whip landed in his hand, and then his body emitted a brilliant light as he waved the green whip. This time, Xiao Hua was also dumbfounded and hurriedly shouted, Master Sun Kong Shangren, please have mercy. Unfortunately, just as he said that, the 3 whip shadows were even more ferocious than the immortal slaying whip before it condensed its spirit. They turned into almost solid flying dragons, and rushed into the 3 cultivators' chests. Their protective magic treasures flickered with a dazzling brilliance, and were annihilated in the blink of an eye. Ah! 3 miserable screams resounded. 3 nascent souls less than 2 feet long flashed above the 3 cultivators' heads. Extreme hatred flashed in the eyes of those nascent souls. Boom! Just as the nascent souls were born, strands of purple awe-inspiring chi appeared within a few feet of the void. This awe-inspiring chi transformed into plum blossoms, and carried the 3 nascent souls into space and disappeared. Following the disappearance of the 3 nascent souls, the scene was silent for a moment. No one dared to say a word. Xiao Hua looked at Zhang Daoran's unsightly face and smiled bitterly. He finally understood the meaning of Zhang Daoran's previous words. When Master Sun Kong Shangren made a move, sure enough, nothing good would come out of it. You actually dared to snatch things in front of me. You're really tired of living. Master Sun Kong's figure descended, and he was still cursing. completely ignoring Zhang Daoran and Xiao Hua's unsightly expressions. Sun Kong, Zhang Daoran said coldly, you killed the people on my ship. What's the meaning of this? Even if they were in the wrong, under my protection, you shouldn't have made a move, right? Old man Daoran, your ex-NCI, Master Sun Kong disapproved. They didn't put you in their eyes at all. You're just a good guy who's stupid. If you're not convinced, hee. Brother Daoran. Xiao Hua saw that the two people were starting to get angry, and the corners of his mouth curled up. This Xiao will also offend you. Oh. Zhang Daoran was stunned, and looked at Xiao Hua with some confusion. Xiao Hua patted the top of his head, and a golden hand that was dozens of feet in size rushed out, grabbing towards Zhang Daoran's giant ship. The texture on this hand was clear, and there were runes flowing on it. It was no different from a real hand. Master Sun Kong laughed, and there was praise in his eyes. Zhang Daoran bit his lips, seeming to have come to a realization. Those who don't listen to orders and snatch treasures without permission must die. Those who spoke bewitchingly and hit on the side to disturb the cooperation of the two brothers must be Confucian spies. They must die. Xiao Hua said indifferently, and his hand covered the several people who had just spoken. A panicked voice hurriedly shouted, Senior Daoran, we boarded your giant ship because of your prestige, but you still haven't spoken. What is the meaning of our trust? Who would dare to follow you in the future? Senior Daoran, save me, I didn't speak just now. Seeing Xiao Hua's hand fall, the cultivator who didn't speak, although he was a little scared, he didn't panic. The four cultivators who spoke bewitchingly were panicked. Seeing that Zhang Daoran really didn't attack like before, they were already panicking and hurriedly wanted to use their life source magic treasures. But what made them even more frightened was that their life source magic treasures, which were originally easy to use, were actually somewhat unable to move under Xiao Hua's hand. Just as they were about to cast another spell, they saw a flash of golden light. The four of them felt a chill on their necks at almost the same time, followed by a huge pain. Ah, pooh! Blood spurted out and four weak nascent souls rushed out from the blood light, each holding a small magic treasure in their hands. Chapter 36-35. Boom! Similarly, under everyone's watchful eyes, four waves of overwhelming qi surged, and dozens of plum blossoms enveloped the four nascent souls, disappearing in an instant. Everyone was stupefied, even more shocked than when they saw Sun Kong kill the three nascent soul cultivators. Although they were only early nascent soul cultivators, but they were still nascent soul cultivators. They were all fourth stage essence force like Xiao Hua. The four nascent soul cultivators were slapped down by Xiao Hua's palm, followed by a snap of scissors. In particular, everyone's hearts tightened. Although Sun Kong also killed the three nascent soul cultivators with a raise of his hand, he first used a magic treasure to injure two, then used his large hand to slap them to death. What Sun Kong relied on was the sharpness of his life-bound magic treasure. But Xiao Hua was different. Although he used a magic treasure to kill the four nascent soul cultivators, it was the large hand that was truly controlling the four nascent soul cultivators. In other words, Xiao Hua could imprison the four early nascent soul cultivators with his magic power alone. As for whether it was a magic tool or magic treasure that killed them, it was already insignificant. Good. Sun Kong's eyes flashed with extraordinary splendor. He stretched out his hand and slapped Xiao Hua's shoulder, shouting, As expected, you're a straightforward person. Damn it, you must chop off a chicken's head and burn yellow paper. Xiao Hua calmly shifted his body, dodging Sun Kong's large hand, and said with a smile, Must brothers become sworn brothers? Must we dual cultivate if it's true love? Sun Kong Shangren stares blankly on the spot, and his hand that swatted the air also stops in midair. After a full moment, Sun Kong Shangren laughs loudly, and uses his finger to point at Xiao Hua as he says, You, what you said is too wonderful. Damn it, why didn't I know you 2,000 years earlier? Just based on your must we dual cultivate if it's true love? I'll definitely become sworn brothers with you. Fairy Jing's face blushed as she stared at Xiao Hua with her watery eyes. Even Zhang Daoran, who was originally angry, revealed a strange smile when he heard Xiao Hua's last sentence. He couldn't vent his anger at Xiao Hua and Master Sun Kong's brushing of his face. Boom boom boom. Right at this moment, there was another change in the defensive array. In the void in all directions, blood-red clouds surged, and a dozen more jade boxes flew out from the clouds, either crashing into the huge sphere or the belt around the sphere. But at this moment, no one dared to speak rashly, and no one dared to be the first to make a move. All of them moved their gazes away from the brilliance of the jade box to look at Zhang Daoran and Lord Sun Kong. Hee, old Zhang, look, if it weren't for Taoist Master Xiao, you and I would be fighting happily now. I'm afraid that many cultivators would have died in these jade boxes. Sun Kong looked at Zhang Daoran proudly. Now do you understand? The corner of Zhang Daoran's mouth twitched slightly. The effect of killing people was immediate. He knew very well that he couldn't get angry even if he wanted to. Brother Daoran, send a few cultivators to find the jade boxes. Brother Sun Kong, send a few people to another place. Xiao Hua said indifferently. Old Zhang, please. Although Sun Kong was arrogant, he could be considered reasonable at this moment. He raised his hand and said with a smile. Zhang Daoran naturally understood that this was to give him face. Although his expression didn't change, his heart was already shaken. He opened his mouth and called out a few names, then looked at Fairy Jing and said with a smile, Li Jing, go too. Yes, Junior obeys. Fairy Jing hurriedly nodded. She knew that the three of them had something to say, so she flew away. After Fairy Jing left, Zhang Daoran waved his hand, and a barrier appeared. He looked around and said in a low voice, Taoist Master Xiao, this old man has something to say to you. Brother Daoran, please speak. Seeing Zhang Daoran's seriousness, Xiao Hua hurriedly changed his expression and said in a low voice, although we've only just met, we're still Taoist disciples. There's nothing to hide. Zhang Daoran looked at the disapproving Sun Kong and said, actually, this old man has long wanted to say this to old Sun Kong, but unfortunately, I never had the chance. If you weren't here today, this old man probably wouldn't have mentioned it to him. You don't like to say it, but I don't like to hear it. Sure enough, as soon as Zhang Daoran finished speaking, Sun Kong immediately shouted. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, saying, Brother Sun Kong, don't be impatient. We've all cultivated for thousands of years. We should have a bit of patience, right? If Brother Xiao wasn't here, this old man wouldn't even bother with this old man. Sun Kong coldly snorted and looked into the distance. Their cultivators were looking for the jade boxes that had fallen there. Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. Neither of the two late nascent soul stage cultivators were willing to submit to the other. In addition, one of them was very arrogant, and the other was too lazy to pay attention to others. They seemed to be high and mighty, but it was really strenuous to talk. If he hadn't just revealed his strength, the two of them might not have listened to him. And he could be considered a buffer for the two of them. Zhang Daoran slightly hesitated and said, actually, this old man has cultivated to a bottleneck. I keep feeling that I'm just a little bit away from entering the leaving aperture realm. Sun Kong's ears were naturally erect. When he heard this, he almost jumped up and shouted in an incredulous voice, Old Zhang, you're bragging. How could you cultivate to such a realm? Believe it or not, Zhang Daoran curled his lips. This old man is talking to Brother Xiao. You. Sun Kong opened his mouth. If it was before, he would have already left. He didn't believe that Zhang Daoran could enter the leaving aperture realm before him. Brother Daoran means. Xiao Hua's eyes turned and he understood. He smiled and said, You're not interested in the Azure Nether Dragon saliva? Zhang Daoran nodded. You can say that. Because if I can't get this little bit of opportunity, even if this old man lives another 10,000 years, I might not be able to break through. Damn it, old Zhang, you're too cunning. You were still saying that you wanted to snatch the Azure Nether Dragon saliva. Sun Kong couldn't bear it anymore and shouted. Zhang Daoran rolled his eyes and said, Can this old man tell you the truth? Besides, even if this old man can't get anything else, getting the Azure Nether Dragon saliva is also pretty good, right? This old man understands. You want the cold ghost gallbladder. Only this kind of extreme item can match your ice-profound physique and enter the leaving aperture realm. Sun Kong suddenly realized. Zhang Daoren didn't hide it and nodded, saying, "This old man indeed wants the cold ghost gallbladder. It's not that this old man didn't plan to tell you, but think about it. Did you give this old man a chance?" "Humph, that's because you're hiding it and don't dare to say it." Of course, Sun Kong wouldn't admit it. Brother Sun Kong wants the Azure Netherdragon saliva, right? Xiao Hua said to Sun Kong with a smile. Sun Kong nodded solemnly. That's right. This old man doesn't have old Zhang's opportunity. I'm afraid that I'll have to use this to extend my life, and then break through. This Xiao already has the state teacher's lot. In that case, the three of us don't have any conflicts of interest? Xiao Hua now also knew Zhang Daoren's plan. Looking at the two, he said, Brother Daoren means that the three of us should join forces? That's right. Zhang Daoren nodded. This old man doesn't dare to join forces with old ghost Sun Kong. This guy has too many tricks. If we're not careful, we'll suffer. Although this old man isn't familiar with Taoist cultivation is deep, and can be considered to have the qualifications to join forces with this old man. Moreover, this old man is very familiar with Li Jing. She's a cautious person, and keeps herself clean. She never interacts with ordinary cultivators. Since she can take the initiative to find Taoist, then this old man can barely trust Taoist's character. Damn, this old man and Xiao Hua hit it off at first sight. After we go out, I'll definitely chop off a chicken's head and burn yellow paper. Sun Kong was much more straightforward than Zhang Daoren. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and shook his head slightly. This Xiao understands what you two brothers mean, but this Xiao doesn't plan on joining forces with you two brothers? Damn, who do you think you are? Sun Kong was immediately enraged. He sneered. This old man thinks highly of you. Old man Sun Kong. Zhang Daoren shouted sternly. It's not too late to listen to Brother Zhao's intentions first. Didn't you hit it off at first sight with him? Humph. Sun Kong looked a bit unhappy. Hee. It's not that I'm looking down on you two brothers. Xiao Hua actually admired Sun Kong's straightforwardness. He said with a smile. It's just that this Xiao was lucky enough to kill a 5th-level lower-rank Confucian general in a defensive formation. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be one of Star-Lord Hall's guardian Star-Lords. How could Star-Lord Hall leave this Xiao at that? This Xiao has been pondering on how to escape Star-Lord Hall's pursuit, but I couldn't find a good way. If this Xiao joins forces with you two brothers, wouldn't it be harming you two brothers? Huh? Zhang Daoren and Sun Kong were both dumbfounded. They looked at each other, shock and doubt flashing in their eyes. What Xiao Hua said was true. He had also thought of disguising himself, but even if he did, his spells and abilities would not change. It would still be impossible to escape Star-Lord Hall's pursuit. Rather than that, he might as well not expose his ability to disguise himself. Of course, he also wanted to disguise himself as a Confucian cultivator, but the time was not right. Appearing in this defensive formation filled with Taoism cultivators, wasn't that courting death? Brother Xiao, are you sure that Star-Lord has fallen? Zhang Daoren opened his mouth and asked softly. Of course, his primordial spirit was obliterated by this Xiao. His body was also burned by this Xiao's true Samadhi fire. Xiao Hua said without hesitation. Very good, Sun Kong also hurriedly said. Now that Yaotai Mountain is in chaos, others might not know that you killed that Star-Lord. Forget it, damn it. Even if they know, this old man will still stand with you. To be able to kill a Star-Lord, this old man is truly impressed. This old man will definitely cut off a chicken's head and burn yellow paper with you. Zhang Daoren thought for a moment, then nodded and said, Since Brother Xiao cannot hide this matter and tell us frankly, then you don't treat us as outsiders. You can kill a Star-Lord, so why can't we help you? If you didn't say this old man might not join forces with you. Now that this old man knows, how can I not join forces with you? Chapter 36-36. Damn it, Zhang Daoren, when did you become so hot-blooded? How come I've never seen you act so impulsively? Sun Kong also grinned. Actually, Zhang Daoren continued, this is related to the second thing I want to tell you two brothers. Brother Daoren, please speak. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he said indifferently, "The second thing is related to the abnormality of the Jade Pavilion gathering," Zhang Daoran said tirelessly. "I don't know if you two brothers have noticed that the Jade Pavilion gathering this time is completely different from before? To tell you the truth, I have participated in the Yaotai gatherings several times. In the past, the Yaotai gatherings were not so much a test for Taoist cultivators in the middle and late stages of Yuanying realm like me, but rather a different kind of auction. However, the usual auction was about primordial stones, but this auction is about strength. As long as you have the strength, you can get rare treasures and spiritual herbs from the Star-Lord Hall, and you don't necessarily have to pay the price of your life. That kind of risk is only for golden core and early nascent soul stage cultivators. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many nascent soul stage cultivators coming to join in the fun." "That's right." Hearing Zhang Daoran's words, Sun Kong nodded in agreement. "Speaking of the Jade Pavilion gathering, who doesn't know that it's the bait of the Star-Lord Hall? Every 10 years, they'll get some good things for us Taoist disciples to fight over. Come here and kill each other? However, how can there be no fighting over rare treasures? Outside the Jade Mountain is killing, inside the Jade Mountain is also killing. Rather than fighting over rare treasures outside the Jade Mountain, it's better to fight in the Jade Pavilion gathering. Of course, the most important thing is still the Imperial Preceptor's lot, which can only be used once. When we Taoist cultivators establish a country, the Imperial Preceptor's lot will reveal the country's title, and the Imperial Preceptor's lot can no longer be used. The most damaging move of the Star-Lord Hall is that the Imperial Preceptor's lot with the title of the country is useless to Taoist cultivators, while Confucian cultivators can use the Imperial Preceptor's lot to come to the Jade Mountain to exchange for rich rewards. Aren't you just toying with us Tao sect cultivators? Xiao Hua sneered. Yeah, even if that's the case, didn't Brother Xiao also come? Zhang Daoran said self-mockingly. Moreover, this old man and Master Sun Kong also came. Hundreds of fellow nascent soul cultivators have also arrived. In the past, the Yaotai meeting emphasized balance. Our Taoist cultivators suffered some losses, but they were all in the formation and defense formation. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals of Star-Lord Hall might not take action, and they would also give a lot of elixirs and treasures. Sun Kong narrowed his eyes and said, but it's obviously different this time. According to all the signs this Jade Pavilion meeting, I'm afraid that Star-Lord Palace has set up a great bait to kill most of the nascent soul stage cultivators. Zhang Daoran's eyes were fierce as well. He said, since Star-Lord Hall wants me dead, why don't I fight to the death? If Brother Xiao can kill a Star Venerate, why can't I? That's true. You've already cultivated to the out-of-body stage, so you've reached the limit of Confucian cultivators' tolerance. If you can kill a Star Venerate here, you'll definitely leave your name as a hidden immortal. Sun Kong said thoughtfully. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, I originally thought that I was the only one who saw it, but I didn't expect the two of you to also see it. Since it's like this, we can't let these Taoist cultivators kill each other. Instead, we should unite our spearheads against the outside, so as to find a way to survive for most of the cultivators. As for the matter of joining hands, this Xiao naturally agrees, but it's only limited to fighting for treasures. This Xiao is willing to lend you to a hand. If you encounter Star-Lord Palace's pursuit, this Xiao feels that the two of you should look at your own strength. The two of you absolutely can't do something like hitting a rock with an egg. Moreover, this Xiao is confident that under the pursuit of a Star-Lord, there's a chance. Xiao Hua's words were very clear. He didn't believe in the two's strength. After all, they were only late nascent soul stage cultivators, and it was difficult for them to compare to Star-Lords of the lower 5th grade. Rather than sending them to their deaths, it was better to escape on their own. He believed that his Leaping Thunder Realm's Leaping Thunder escape technique would be able to escape a way out. How can that be? Sun Kong was about to shout again, but Zhang Daoran said in a low voice, Old brother Sun Kong, listen to old brother Xiao. Even if we ambush and kill some immortal soldiers and immortal generals, it's also helping old brother Xiao. If we command a group of Taoism disciples to fight against Star-Lord Palace's disciples, isn't that also helping old brother Xiao? Oh, all right. Sun Kong muttered a little, nodding slightly as a form of agreement. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He cupped his hands and said, "To be able to meet the two of you, this Xiao is truly fortunate. Actually, the so-called sworn brothers and sworn brothers are all nonsense. It's like having someone in your heart, but that person isn't your dual cultivation partner. It's unnecessary to take off your pants and fart. You and I both know in our hearts that it's enough to help each other." Well said. Sun Kong liked Xiaohua talking about dual cultivation partners the most. He couldn't help but clap his hands and laugh. Zhang Daoren also smiled slightly. If we become sworn brothers, there must be a blood oath. It seems more reliable. We're just saying this, there aren't any restrictions. There's no need for any restrictions. The Tao of Heaven and the Tao Heart are restrictions. My own heart is also a restriction. Xiaohua disagreed. If there's a rebellion in the heart, even if it's a blood oath, what can it do? If you don't plan to rebel, what's wrong with not making a blood oath? Trust. Zhang Daoren gave a thumbs up. Trust without doubt. This is what brothers are like. I hope Taoism disciples are all brothers. Xiaohua said with a smile. I can't chop off a chicken's head and burn yellow paper. I always feel like something is missing. Sun Kong was very regretful. He raised his hands and said, "How about we give each other a high five?" All right. Zhang Daoren raised his hands and looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua was a little hesitant. It was very normal for Zhang Daoren and Sun Kong to team up. After all, although the two didn't get along, they were also familiar with each other. He had only met the two for the first time. They hadn't reached that kind of friendship yet. However, Xiaohua looked at the dozens of cultivators on the two flying boats, standing there very obediently. They weren't like the group of cultivators led by Taoist Huda. Xiaohua's heart moved. He raised his hands and said, I'm really lucky to be able to make friends with two late nascent soul stage brothers. Haha. Sun Kong high-fived Zhang Daoren with one hand and Xiaohua with the other. He laughed loudly and said, Even in my dreams, I didn't expect to be able to high-five old man Zhang. This time's Jade Pavilion meeting is really interesting. The three of them high-fived the alliance agreement. They were all very happy. Zhang Daoren removed the barrier and looked around. He said, After we get the jade boxes, we'll first take out the items in the jade boxes. Whoever wants them, take out the corresponding item as the price. After these jade boxes are traded, we'll send a group of cultivators to explore the various parts of the Imperial Formation. All right. Sun Kong nodded. This old man has a magic treasure here that can detect the flaws in the Imperial Formation. After we find the jade boxes, we'll immediately leave the Imperial Formation. Sun Kong then pointed at the blood-colored star at the end of the starry sky. Perhaps one of the three treasures is on that blood-colored star. All right, we'll do as you say. Xiaohua nodded. If you need me to do anything, just say it. Soon after, the three of them discussed a bit. The dozen or so cultivators who were looking for the jade boxes had returned. Sure enough, each of them had a jade box in their hands. The jade boxes were all closed, so they didn't know what was inside. The cultivators holding the jade boxes didn't dare to open them. They walked in front of Zhang Daoren and Sun Kong, and respectfully handed the jade boxes to them. Sun Kong waved his hand and said, You all take them first. Xiaohua saw that Sun Kong didn't care and shook his head. He smiled and said, Brother Sun Kong, these are all hot potatoes. If these cultivators take them, I'm afraid there will be problems. It's more suitable for you to take them. Sun Kong disdainfully replied, We're going to trade in a bit. Who has the patience to take these things? Xiaohua thought for a moment and said to Zhang Daoren, Brother Daoren, I don't think it's appropriate for us to trade here. Oh, why? Zhang Daoren took the jade boxes from the cultivators and checked them one by one. He wanted to quickly distribute the jade boxes to appease everyone. So he was startled by Xiaohua's words. Xiaohua smiled. It's actually very simple. It's just that Brother Daoren didn't think too much about it. This old man understands. Xiaohua didn't say it out loud. He only gave a slight hint, and Zhang Daoren and Sun Kong already knew. The two of them looked at each other and controlled their flying boats to get closer. Fairy Jing gave the jade boxes to Zhang Daoran and then stood next to Xiaohua. She smiled and said, "Daoist, can you follow me onto the flying boat now?" "Of course. Fairy Jing, please," Xiaohua replied with a smile. Fairy Jing had a sweet appearance, and her eyes were even more beautiful. The two of them flew onto the boat. At this moment they heard Zhang Daoran say, "Fellow Taoists, you've all seen it. Previously, we fought against each other and lost countless disciples. We might not have been able to obtain any treasures. Now we've worked together and obtained all the treasures in this formation without fear of death. I don't need to say more about who is safe and who is in danger, right?" "Yes, Senior is right. Junior will follow Senior's arrangements." Immediately, a cultivator nearby said, "Junior is only at the Golden Core realm. I wouldn't dare to compare myself to Seniors. If there is something Junior needs, Junior will wait until Seniors don't want it and Junior will pick it up. It's better than dying here." When this cultivator spoke, everyone laughed. They all understood, but no one dared to hold back after seeing the treasures. At this moment, Zhang Daoran, Sun Kong, and Xiaohua being able to stand out was exactly what they wanted to see. Sun Kong also shouted from the side, "Brother Daoran's words are what this old man wants to say. If you don't have any objections, then listen to Brother Daoran's explanation." Yes, Junior has no objections. Sun Kong's methods were ruthless, and everyone on his flying boat was even more united. No one said anything. Chapter 36-37. Although Zhang Daoran disdained Master Sun Kong's character, at the same time, he was envious of Master Sun Kong's methods. With his character, he wasn't suited for any ruthless actions. After hearing Master Sun Kong's words, he said, "Previously, I discussed with Master Sun Kong and Taoist Master Xiao, and we decided to divide the treasures within the defensive formation. Whoever obtained them would have to pay a price, and perhaps others would also need it. This way, everyone would benefit. In the end, there would always be some things left in my hands, so I'll take them and take out some things that you fellow Taoists need, such as spirit pills or magic treasures. However, I've been warned by Taoist Master that this defensive formation is very dangerous. If we divide it now, if any fellow Taoist is unable to protect himself or perishes here, wouldn't our hard work be in vain? Therefore, my intention with Master Sun Kong and Taoist Master is that when we leave Mount Yaotai and arrive at Taoist Master Zhao's Black Wind Mountain, Master Sun Kong's Black Wind Mountain, or even my Grand Wind Mountain, it won't be too late for us to trade then." "Alright, it's settled then. Let's go to Taoist Master Sun Kong's Black Wind Mountain." Xiaohua hastily waved his hand. "Let's go to Brother Daoran's Grand Wind Mountain. My place is currently in a state of war. Fellow Taoists, if you go there, you'll attract the attention of Confucian cultivators, which isn't good for everyone." "Alright, then let's set it at my Grand Wind Mountain." Zhang Daoran nodded. At that time, Master Sun Kong, and the three of us will preside over it. We definitely won't disappoint you fellow Taoists. Since the three cultivators with the highest cultivation bases had already decided, the others could only listen to them. Besides, what Zhang Daoran said was the truth. Even if they could obtain the rare treasure they wanted here, if they could not leave Yaotai Mountain alive, wouldn't everything be for naught? Junior will listen to the arrangements of the two seniors. Fairy Jing was the first to speak. Xiaohua's heart stirred, and he tilted his head to look at Fairy Jing. Fairy Jing seemed to have her thoughts seen through by Xiaohua, and she hastily lowered her head, her forehead actually somewhat red. Since Fairy Jing had spoken, the others agreed. The cultivators on Sun Kong Shangren's flying boat also handed their jade boxes to Sun Kong Shangren for safekeeping. Alright, the plan now is. Zhang Daoran saw that this matter was over, and was about to speak when the entire imperial formation shook. Dozens of pillars of vast qi rushed out from the huge sphere. Layers of clouds shot out from the pillars of vast qi, and quickly scattered in all directions. Then, more strange ripples appeared from various parts of the formation. Wherever the ripples went, the entire formation seemed to boil. Bubbles surged out, and the bubbles grew from small to large. In the end, they exploded with pops. Furthermore, the belt of boulders that surrounded the star was now torn apart by the vibrations, turning into thousands of huge meteors that shot towards the entire defensive formation with a rumbling sound. Destruction of heaven and earth. Boulders flew everywhere, almost covering the entire defensive formation. Xiaohua was immediately alarmed. Thinking of what happened in the previous defensive formation, he hastily shouted, "Brothers, let's hurry and join hands. These boulders are a big movement of the defensive formation. I'm afraid they want to kill us here." "All right," Zhang Daoren proudly said. "With the three of us here, what is there to fear? This old man will join hands with you to resist. Brother Sun Kong, hurry and use your secret technique to find a way out of this defensive formation." "All right." Sun Kong was also in high spirits. He shouted, "This old man hasn't joined hands with someone like this in a long time. Today, watch this old man's methods." As he spoke, the boulders had already begun to fall towards Xiaohua and the others. Although they didn't have the terrifying destructive aura of the defensive formation from before, the whistling of the boulders, the strong wind blowing against their faces, and the huge momentum of their fall revealed another kind of terror. In particular, the boulders were still relatively slow at first, but after flying for a while, they gradually sped up. The group of cultivators scanned them with their divine senses, and after a little calculation, they immediately understood that when the boulders fell in front of them, their speed and strength were definitely not something a single cultivator could resist. For a moment, everyone's faces turned pale. Many cultivators released their divine senses, anxiously looking for a place to hide within the range of their divine senses. Unfortunately, the entire defensive formation was rippling everywhere, and those ripples were all the primers that attracted the boulders. The entire defensive formation was being baptized by the boulders, and there was no safe place at all. The only thing the Taoist cultivators could do was to use their divine abilities to resist these boulders. Fellow Taoists. At this moment, Zhang Daoren was surprisingly calm. He shouted, "Activate your Dharma treasures and form an array behind me. 10 mid-tier 4th grade essence chi cultivators will be at the front, 5 mid-tier or low-tier 4th grade essence chi cultivators will be at the back, and so on. Golden core cultivators will stand at the back." Yes, the cultivators on Zhang Daoren's flying ship hurriedly flew down. Sun Kong also shouted, "Quick, this old man is going to withdraw the flying ship. You all stand behind fellow Taoist Zhang." With that, Sun Kong waved his Taoist robe, and the flying ship let out a rumble and gradually shrunk. All the cultivators on the ship didn't dare to be negligent and flew down one after another. The two groups of cultivators that had been fighting before began to work together before the great disaster. Sun Kong withdrew the flying ship and took out a palm-sized macaque from his Qianquan pouch. The macaque stood still in the air, stretched out its arms, and lazily opened its eyes. However, when the macaque saw the flying boulders clearly, it cried out "Gigi," and hastily shrank its head. It used its hands to hide its head and jumped into Sun Kong's hands, as if it was extremely scared. Damn it! Sun Kong was somewhat embarrassed. He grabbed the macaque's hands and angrily said, "Hurry up and find a way for this old man, or this old man won't give you anything to eat." Gigi, the macaque was very aggrieved. It smacked its lips and stretched out its hands to pull at Sun Kong's Taoist robe. "Haha, this is Sun Kong's demon pet. Its name is Chang Gung, and it's a variant macaque." Zhang Daoren smiled and said to Xiaohua, who had already flown to his side, "This macaque has a pair of void-piercing eyes and can see the weakness of space. It'll be of great use within this defensive formation." "Void-piercing eyes?" Xiaohua's eyes turned, and he said with a smile, "I've heard of a type of void-piercing beast whose eyes can see through the void. I didn't expect a macaque to have one as well." Zhang Daoren nodded. "Brother Xiao is right. The void-piercing beast is a variant beast of the void. I've only heard of it and have never seen it. However, this macaque can't compare to the void-piercing beast. It can only find the weak points of space. As for the specifics, it'll depend on Sun Kong's methods. If the void-piercing beast is here, it'll probably be able to directly open it. As he spoke, Zhang Daoran looked at the black shadow pressing down from above in the distance and said in a low voice, "The boulders are about to arrive. Let's each use our own methods. You take the right and I take the left. We'll do as much as we can. The more you and I block, the more hope the Dao sect cultivators behind us have, and fewer people will die." As he spoke, Zhang Daoran's body flashed with brilliance. Heaven and earth origin chi poured into his head, setting off a storm. Within the storm, Zhang Daoran's body rapidly expanded, and in the end, he was several dozen feet tall. Roar! Seeing Zhang Daoran again, he opened his mouth, and a strange magic treasure flew out. This magic treasure was like a stick, but it was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. The center of the magic treasure was connected to a fist-sized profound stone. Puff! Zhang Daoran spat out a mouthful of true essence on the magic treasure. The magic treasure let out a roar and rushed into the air. As Zhang Daoran's Dharma body waved its hands, the magic treasure flashed with a dazzling brilliance and slowly expanded. When it landed in Zhang Daoran's hands, it was already like two huge fists. Seeing Zhang Daoran activate his Dharma body, Sun Kong hurriedly took out a tricolored bead and threw it into Chang Gung's mouth. The macaque swallowed it in one gulp, and its body emitted the same color. Then it burped. Before Sun Kong could speak, its two pitch-black eyes emitted an even more dazzling tricolored brilliance. The brilliance that shot out from the macaque's eyes was a full 3 inches long. Then, the macaque jumped up from Sun Kong's hand, looked around, and flew behind everyone. Sun Kong glanced at Zhang Daoran with a trace of shock in his eyes. Then he urged his body to follow behind the macaque. Boom boom boom. The boulder was approaching, shaking the entire defensive array. Xiaohua clearly felt that the space around him was trembling. In the face of such a strong impact, no fancy spells could work. Only absolute strength was truly useful. This experience was already known when he fell into the trial array of the Sunset Island. Moreover, how similar was this boulder array to the trial array at that time? It was just that this boulder seemed to be endless. It was a killing array. Roar! Xiaohua opened his mouth and roared. The golden light around his body shone brightly, and waves of heaven and earth essence chi rushed into his body. In the dazzling golden light, Xiaohua's Dharma body was quickly born. In a moment, it was already dozens of feet in size. It was not inferior to Zhang Daoran. "Look at this Zhao's means," Xiaohua shouted again. With a wave of his hand, the wishful steel staff appeared. Grow, grow, grow. The huge staff turned into more than 100 feet in front of everyone's stunned eyes. The pitch-black staff was filled with blood and murderous intent. Obviously, no one knew how many people had died under the staff. Good. Zhang Daoran saw Xiaohua's Dharma body and the wishful steel staff in his hand. His eyes flashed with a strange color, and he couldn't help but cry out. Then he said in high spirits, "Brother Xiao, you and I can make a bet. Let's see who can destroy more boulders. What do you think?" "As you wish." Xiaohua laughed. Woo. As he spoke, a huge boulder that was hundreds of meters in size had already landed on top of Zhang Daoran's head. The edge of the boulder emitted a strong light. Clearly, it was on fire due to the friction in the air. Shrill sounds were also emitted from the fire. The suffocating wind caused the brilliance around Zhang Daoran to sway left and right. Chapter 36-38. Hit! Zhang Daoran's face turned cold. The magic weapon in his left hand emitted a pale white brilliance and rushed to the air a few hundred feet away. Poof! The brilliance fell on the boulder, and the flames of the boulder were immediately annihilated. Then, a faint layer of frost quickly spread on the surface of the boulder. Then with a kacha sound, the surface of the boulder began to crack. The crack gradually deepened, and when it fell about 100 feet in front of Zhang Daoran's head, Zhang Daoran waved his right hand, and a fist of more than 100 feet rushed out and hit the boulder. Boom! The 100-feet-sized boulder shattered into dozens of pieces, either brushing past Zhang Daoran's body and falling obliquely to the ground. Good. The nascent soul cultivators behind Zhang Daoran who were on guard shouted. Another 10 cultivators released their magic treasures. Lights of various colors rushed out and smashed the rocks in front of them. Haha, Brother Daoran is really powerful. Xiaohua smiled and gave a thumbs up. Since he entered Yaotai Mountain, he had never been so carefree. Although there were countless boulders in front of him, and he didn't know where he could resist, it was still satisfying to fight with a cultivator like Zhang Daoran. It depends on Brother Zhao's means. Zhang Daoran narrowed his eyes. Just in front of Xiaohua's head, there was also a boulder of more than 100 feet falling. Xiaohua smiled and said, "This Xiao is not as good as Brother Daoran's means. I can only use stupid means. I'm afraid I'll make Brother Daoran laugh." With that, Xiaohua's body flashed with lightning, and his huge figure rushed up quickly. In the blink of an eye, he was under the boulder. Then, Xiaohua's eyes widened, and he raised the staff with both hands and hit the boulder. Boom! With a loud bang, Xiaohua's huge figure tumbled backwards, and the boulder actually exploded under Xiaohua's wishful steel staff. The entire boulder turned into nearly 100 pieces, and it was more effective than Zhang Daoran's magic weapon. Seeing that only a few pieces of the boulder brushed past Xiaohua's body and fell to the cultivators behind him, Zhang Daoran couldn't help but praise again. Good divine power, good staff technique, good eyesight. Humph, humph. Although Xiaohua's words were humble, his heart was proud. He crushed the boulder, not only by relying on the strength of his physical body, but also by relying on his sharp eyes. The place where the wishful steel staff hit was exactly where the boulder could be crushed. Moreover, he borrowed the momentum to roll, and the vibration his body suffered was weakened. This method was much better than Zhang Daoran's pure spiritual power. Zhang Daoran naturally saw through it too and said with a bitter smile, "This old man was wrong. How could I make this kind of bet with you? That strike of yours didn't consume any magic power. Moreover, your eyes are like lightning. That strike of yours was aimed at the vital part of the boulder. It's as if you could kill a cultivator with a single strike. This old man, how can I compare to you?" "Haha, Brother Daoran, it's too late to regret now." Xiaohua laughed, and his whole body flashed with lightning again. He rushed forward again, and before the second boulder could get close, the wishful steel staff had already swung out. Rumble! Although this boulder was much bigger than the previous one, the pressure it exerted on Xiaohua didn't change at all. Xiaohua's body was shaken to the point that he was forced to retreat, but he managed to reduce the enormous force by 70%. As for the fragments that were shattered, it was a piece of cake for the dozen or so mid-nascent soul stage cultivators behind him. The earth-shattering rumbling sounds were incessant, and as time passed, the sounds became even more concentrated. Like a violent storm, huge rocks dragged flames behind them, shaking the sky as they howled toward Xiaohua and Zhang Daoran. In the first 2 hours, it was really hard to tell who was better. One was as quiet as a virgin, waving the magic weapon in his hand again and again, and smashing the boulders with a punch. The other was moving like a rabbit, rushing into the sky from time to time, and smashing down with the wishful steel staff, regardless of size. However, after an hour, there was a slight difference. Zhang Daoran's magic power was vast, but his body was not as good as Xiaohua's. Under the impact of dozens of boulders, his entire meridians were a little sore, not to mention the trembling of his body. Zhang Daoran's divine sense swept out. The boulders passing through the sky also had an impact on his divine sense. His divine sense would be injured by more boulders if he released it more than 10 feet. Zhang Daoran did not dare to release it too far. He only took a rough look and could not help but secretly complain in his heart. The boulders on the side of the huge sphere seemed to be endless. The entire defensive formation was filled with boulders. Not to mention that there was no place to hide. There seemed to be no end to the boulders above his head. After Zhang Daoran knocked down a boulder that was dozens of feet in size, he patted it on the top of his head. A giant hand, that was nearly 100 feet in size, was born from the top of his head. With a huge roar, the giant hand held the sky with one palm and waved toward the top of his head. Woo! There was a gust of wind, and then there was the sound of boulders hitting each other. Within a range of nearly 100 feet, the giant hand swept away everything. Zhang Daoran breathed a sigh of relief. Taking advantage of this gap, He hurriedly urged his cultivation method and took a little rest. Brother Daren's magic power is really powerful, Xiaohua said with a smile. The wishful steel staff in his hand was still neither fast nor slow. It was like an old farmer plowing the field, breaking one boulder after another. Zhang Daoran looked at Xiaohua's vigorous figure and was quite envious. In his early years, he also had the heart to temper his body, but this kind of body cultivation method was really difficult to find. Occasionally, he would get the cultivation method of the demon spirit, but it was too overbearing. He was in human form and could not cultivate it. When he heard Xiaohua's words, the corner of his mouth slightly smiled. He did not answer and seized the time to adjust his breath. However, in a moment, a large number of small stones mixed with thick smoke and dust covered Zhang Daoran. Zhang Daoran sighed slightly in his heart and waved the magic weapon in his hand again. However, after this time, the gap between Zhang Daoran and Xiaohua was widened. Where Zhang Daoran urged his magic weapon, the boulder fragments became bigger and bigger. The dozen or so nascent soul middle-stage cultivators, behind him, began to feel a huge pressure. From time to time, one or two cultivators would exchange positions with the cultivators behind them and temporarily rest. Under Xiaohua's wishful steel staff, all the boulders, regardless of size, had always been relatively uniform. Although the number was large, the fragments were small, so the dozen or so cultivators behind him did not have to expend much effort. Later, many cultivators even took the initiative to fly to Zhang Daoran's side to help. Another 2 hours passed, but the flying stones of the entire defensive array still showed no signs of stopping. Old man Sun Kong. Zhang Daoran was a little impatient. He urged his magic power and shouted, "Did your Chang Gung find anything?" Sun Kong's slightly embarrassed voice immediately sounded. "The fluctuations of the boulders here are too great. The entire space is affected. Chang Gung has not found anything yet. Brother Daoran, hold on a little longer." Zhang Daoran was helpless. After thinking for a moment, he stretched out his hand and took out a palm-sized semicircular magic weapon from his Qingquan bag. He spat out a mouthful of true essence, and the magic weapon immediately shot out like a sharp arrow. It followed the extremely small gap between the boulders to a space of several hundred feet. Zhang Daoran chanted again, "Quick!" But with a flash of brilliance, the magic weapon suddenly expanded to several hundred feet. It was like a big umbrella that blocked above his head. Boom, boom, boom. 3 loud sounds rang out in a row. The brilliance on the magic weapon flashed rapidly, and the entire magic weapon fell with the boulders. "Rise!" Zhang Daoran pointed his finger. Another surge of magic power rushed out, and the magic weapon rushed up 5 feet. Boom! Unfortunately, at this time, another boulder fell. With a crisp kacha sound, the magic weapon was damaged. Its brilliance disappeared, and the boulder fell again. Alas! Zhang Daoran only wanted to give it a try. Seeing that this method didn't work, he immediately abandoned the magic weapon and hurriedly wanted to activate the magic weapon in his hand. However, there were now 4 boulders piled up on top of the semicircular magic weapon. Zhang Daoran had just raised the magic weapon in his hand when he felt something was wrong. He activated his divine sense again, and the big hand appeared out of thin air. However, this time, the big hand seemed to be very strenuous. It could only sweep the space of several hundred feet and couldn't extend too far. Seeing this, Xiaohua knew that even though Zhang Daoran's magic power was profound, he was still unable to cope with these huge rocks that were constantly striking down like a heavenly tribulation. He pondered for a moment and called out, "Brother Daoran, the formation of the mini cultivators behind us has already become somewhat chaotic under the attack of the huge rock fragments. This Zhao's prestige is not enough to convince the masses. How about this Xiao help you take on some huge rocks first? Then you can restrain them." Zhang Daoran was stunned. He looked at Xiaohua with some disbelief, and then looked at the endless boulders above his head. How could he not understand Xiaohua's meaning? This meant that he wanted him to rest. "All right." Zhang Daoran thought for a moment and nodded. "We'll wait for the 2 groups to cooperate. I'll rest for a moment, and then when Brother Xiao is exhausted, I'll take over." All right, we'll do as Brother Daoran says. Xiaohua agreed and waved his hand. Fellow Taoists, follow me to Senior Zhang's side. We'll hit him with our power. Yes, Taoist Master Xiao. The cultivators behind Xiaohua were full of confidence. They indeed didn't use too much magic power. Zhang Daoran and Xiaohua slowly approached each other, and the two groups of cultivators also merged into one. Zhang Daoran withdrew from the sky and withdrew his avatar. He only felt a burst of bone softness and numbness, and a sharp pain that he hadn't felt for a long time came from his meridians. Senior Daoran, it's all thanks to you and Taoist Master Xiao. Behind him, a burly nascent soul cultivator said with a smile. Otherwise, facing such a vast rain of boulders, we would have already died without a burial ground. You should rest more. It's time for us to exert our strength. We'll have to rely on your magical ability later. Zhang Daoran nodded lightly and took out a jade bottle from his bosom. He poured out a medicinal pill from the jade bottle and put it into his mouth. His figure swayed and landed behind the crowd. All the cultivators took the initiative to make way for him, and their eyes were full of respect. Looking at Xiaohua again, he was still the kind of person who didn't seek merit, but only sought not to make mistakes. He waved the wishful staff unhurriedly, and the boulders shattered one by one, like a child in the secular world, using a small stick to hit a hamster that popped out of a hole in the ground. Chapter 36-39. Zhang Daoran rested for another hour. Even though Xiaohua's divine strength was astonishing, he still started to feel exhausted. This exhaustion wasn't just physical exhaustion, but also mental exhaustion. After all, who wouldn't slack off after constantly striking the boulders like this? What's more, in the past hour, it seemed like there were no more boulders that were 300 meters in size. The size of the boulders was gradually increasing, and the force of impact was more than twice as strong as before. Xiaohua's arms were somewhat sore. When Zhang Daoran saw this, he said loudly, Taoist Master Xiao, it's time for you to rest. All right. Xiaohua heaved a sigh of relief and agreed. Zhang Daoran was just about to urge his magic treasure forward when he heard Sun Kong shout. Old man Zhang, Taoist Master Xiao, I'm afraid you guys can't be replaced. My Changgung seems to have discovered some flaws in the defensive formation. However, the flaws aren't here. We need to go to another place in the rain of boulders. I'm searching with Changgung, and I'm simply unable to divert my attention to block the boulders. I'd like to ask someone to come over and protect me. Taoist Master Xiao, go. Zhang Daoran said with a smile. You can rest now. Xiaohua retreated half a meter, thought for a moment, and said, I should be able to hold on for about 2 hours. If Brother Sun Kong can find the exit within 2 hours, then Brother Daoran doesn't have to replace me. Sun Kong transmitted his voice from afar. 2 hours is enough. All right. Xiaohua said to Zhang Daoran. Brother Daoran, quickly go and protect Brother Sun Kong. The two of you are responsible for the safety of our lives. Don't be careless. All right. Zhang Daoran knew that he was far inferior to Xiaohua in dealing with the boulders. He responded and urged the magic treasure in his hand. His figure flew in the direction of Sun Kong. Along the way, the boulders exploded under the brilliance of the magic treasure. Seeing that Zhang Daoran had left, Xiaohua waved the wishful steel staff again. When he saw that the endless boulders were denser than raindrops, Xiaohua also became excited. Roar! With a long roar, his waist swelled, and the wishful steel staff grew again. The wishful steel staff danced in Xiaohua's hand like a wheel. Rumble! The continuous bombardment was particularly harsh in the vibration of space. Xiaohua, who was 100 feet tall, was like a demon god. His entire upper body was covered by smoke and dust. Pieces of gravel fell on his body, but they could not hurt him. One by one, they were once again destroyed by the cultivators whose morale had also soared. Watch this, Xiao. After another half an hour, there was still no news from Sun Kong Shangren. Xiaohua yelled. His whole body flashed with golden light, and the huge Dharma idol slowly retracted. After returning to its original state, Xiaohua put away the wishful steel staff, and then rushed towards the top of his head like the wind. Xiao, Taoist Xiao, what are you doing? Xiao Hua's behavior was quite strange, causing the dozen or so Yuanying stage cultivators behind him, who were also extremely tired, to be stunned, and their faces changed slightly. This was because the boulders were not only powerful, but the boulders were also extremely dense. Not to mention that the distance between the boulders could not allow the cultivators to use the flying technique. Even the gaps between the boulders could not allow the cultivators to escape freely. As long as the cultivators made a slight mistake, they would immediately be hit by the boulders. This was also the fundamental reason why the dozens of cultivators could only resist here, and no one dared to escape. At this time, Xiao Hua actually wanted to rush into these boulders with his bare hands. How could everyone not be surprised? Even some narrow-minded people had begun to doubt Xiao Hua's motives. Everyone was still surprised. When Xiao Hua rushed to the front of the first boulder, his figure suddenly floated strangely to the side, and at the moment of imminent peril, he let go of the boulder. At the same time, in the blink of an eye, without waiting for him to stand firm, another boulder smashed down like a mountain. Ouch! Everyone was slightly speechless. But at this time, Xiao Hua's figure once again floated strangely, and in mid-air, he flew behind the previous boulder. Good! Everyone unconsciously cheered in their hearts. In the few breaths of time when everyone was cheering, Xiao Hua seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll, and more like a ghost, he rushed over several boulders all of a sudden. Not good! Taoist Master Xiao. Seeing the huge boulder completely smashing down, the dozen or so Yuanying stage cultivators in front of them were shocked. If it was the initial boulder, they still had the ability to join forces and break it. But now the boulder was really huge, and had exceeded their ability. They all exclaimed in their hearts. Could it be that he wants to escape? Of course, at this moment, Xiao Hua had calmly flown up dozens of feet in the air, and he did not suffer any damage at all. Anyone who thought about it knew that Xiao Hua had the magical ability to escape from this boulder rain. In that case, Xiao Hua abandoned the wishful staff and flew behind the boulder. If he did not escape, then what was he doing? Just when the dozen or so Yuanying stage cultivators were about to grit their teeth and catch these boulders, Xiao Hua's figure paused slightly, and he flew down with the boulder. When his speed was the same as the boulder, his mind was integrated into his spiritual sense, and the spiritual sense was like several big hands wrapped around the boulder below him. Then they heard Xiao Hua roar. Up! Several boulders actually made a loud boom boom sound in Xiao Hua's spiritual sense, and then the side of the boulder suddenly tilted. The entire boulder was actually used by Xiao Hua to borrow force, and under the control of his spiritual sense, it suddenly flew upside down and rushed to the boulder above Xiao Hua's head. Boom! Several roars sounded again, and the flying boulder collided with the falling boulder, and each turned into fragments, scattering in all directions. Good. Xiao Hua looked at the surrounding gravel and soil mist, and his eyes narrowed into slits with a smile. Grandma, this spiritual sense secret technique is really powerful. Now this Zhao's spiritual sense is not only abnormally strong, but it can also be used like the hands of a pure Yuanying stage cultivator. What's more, my spiritual sense is subtle, and it's easier to borrow force than physical strength. This way, this Xiao can not only break this rain of boulders and rest my body, but also use it to temper my spiritual sense and mind. It's really killing two birds with one stone. Xiao Hua released his spiritual sense, and the group of Yuanying stage cultivators below him could naturally sense it. But when they saw how powerful Xiao Hua's spiritual sense was, they didn't even have the heart to cry out in surprise, and could only stare blankly at Xiao Hua alone, performing a one-man show. A one-man show facing the entire falling boulder array by himself. Yes, high up in the sky, Xiao Hua was like a bullet, jumping from one place to another, and every time he found a gap, he would immediately release his spiritual sense. At first, his spiritual sense was the same as Zhang Daren's, constantly being attacked by these boulders, but after an hour, his spiritual sense began to condense into threads, as if it was solid, and the impact of the boulders had already decreased. Even when Xiao Hua released his spiritual sense, the thousands of spiritual sense threads also wrapped around the boulders, And then Xiaohua's spiritual sense shook together, and the falling boulders immediately changed direction, suddenly flying backwards, crashing into other falling boulders. As they watched Xiaohua shatter the giant boulders one after another, no one would have thought that Xiaohua was actually tempering his divine sense. Xiaohua had already fused Do Shanjun's spiritual sense with his primordial spirit secret technique for quite some time. During this time, he had been comprehending and cultivating, and his improvement was very obvious. Not to mention that his spiritual sense gradually began to match Xiaohua's magic power. Even his various magic treasures began to display their true strength. However, the tempering of his spiritual sense during this time was far from comparable to the tempering of his spiritual sense in this dangerous place. In less than an hour, Xiaohua clearly felt that his spiritual sense had changed by leaps and bounds. And he also had a feeling that if he was given enough time, his spiritual sense would have an incredible improvement in this huge boulder array. Xiaohua somewhat forgot himself as he continued to temper his spiritual sense with the increasingly violent boulders. The dozens of cultivators below him were stunned. When had they ever seen a spiritual sense comparable to the strength of the physical body? Not to mention, even their physical bodies couldn't resist these boulders, let alone their spiritual sense. But look at Xiaohua. Where his spiritual sense passed, the boulders collapsed. Although Xiaohua didn't show his Dharma body now, in their eyes, he was even more powerful than his previous Dharma body. Haha, so it's here. From far away, Master Sun Kong's voice came from afar, and then Zhang Daoren hurriedly transmitted his voice. Brother Xiao, quickly bring a group of fellow Taoists here. Old man Sun Kong finally found the exit of the defensive array. Okay. Xiaohua was in the mood to cultivate, and was actually interrupted, so he was a little unhappy, but he didn't dare to be negligent. While his figure flew in the direction of Master Sun Kong, his spiritual sense was mixed with the heaven and earth sleeve technique, and layers of giant hands appeared in the air, smashing the huge boulders into pieces. Gaps appeared in the rain of boulders, and it was really an invincible scene. Previously, everyone was shrouded in the shadow of death. Although they saw Xiaohua's great power, and their blood boiled, they didn't dare to relax, lest an accident would destroy their hope. Now, Master Sun Kong and Zhang Daoren didn't disappoint, and found the exit of the defensive array, and the boulders in everyone's hearts were lifted. Moreover, Xiaohua's methods were even more arrogant than before, and everyone's joy was even more uncontrollable. Needless to say, nascent soul cultivators, after all, had cultivated for thousands of years, and although their faces were brimming with smiles, they were still somewhat reserved. Those Jindan cultivators couldn't care less about this, and the crowd of cultivators boiled up and clamored. Taoist Master Xiao, Taoist Master Xiao, Taoist Master Xiao. Cheers and waves of heat waves rushed into Xiaohua's ears one after another. This sound couldn't be concealed in the shock of space. Death in the end couldn't erase life. Where there were people, there was hope for life. Listening to the sincere cheers of these cultivators, the disappointment and coldness in Xiaohua's heart towards the Tao sect changed a little. After all, humans were complex, and it was impossible to ask everyone to have noble moral integrity. If everyone was like Xiaohua, would this hidden immortal continent still be a continent controlled by Confucian cultivators? Would this Jade Pavilion gathering still exist? Chapter 3640. I am the Tao sect Xiaohua. Today, I am risking my life to save you all. There is no need for you all to repay me. I only ask that you all have the Tao sect in your hearts. No matter where you go, you must consider yourselves Tao sect disciples. The Tao sect is the door to the heavenly Tao. Entering my Tao sect is the same as stepping into the door to the heavenly Tao. Facing such a heavenly Tao, we should seek it from top to bottom. The difficult path is under our feet, and the dangerous map is in our hearts. Only by remembering that you are a Tao sect disciple, every word and action must have the attitude of the heavenly Tao. Can you comprehend the Tao? Xiaohua sighed and said in a deep voice, although I walked half a mile earlier, I know that while I am a Tao sect disciple, I am also a human. The word human is easy to write, but human actions are difficult to do. Do not do good because it is small. Do not do evil because it is small. This is a human. Without a human, without humanity, where would the Tao foundation come from? Where would the Tao experience come from? Only by being a good person can you be a good cultivator. Can you truly comprehend the heavenly Tao? Thank you, Taoist Master Xiao. Everyone was enlightened. These words could be said by anyone. But in this kind of situation, in this kind of dangerous situation, Xiao Hua said each word engraved in their hearts. These cultivators would probably never forget it for the rest of their lives. Boom, boom, boom. Xiao Hua urged his divine sense and unleashed one divine ability after another, crushing the boulders above everyone's heads. Even the late nascent soul stage Zhang Daoran and Master Sun Kong in the distance were frightened when they saw this. Just as Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong looked at each other, Xiao Hua's rather bold and unrestrained voice sang again. The Tao sect here has declined early. Today the hidden immortal Tao sect opens. In this world with me Xiao Hua, here dare to let my disciples be bullied? Hiss. Even someone as arrogant as Sun Kong unconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard these words. He was able to cultivate to the late nascent soul stage, so his knowledge and experience naturally couldn't be compared to others. He had also seen arrogant Tao sect cultivators, but he had never seen such an arrogant cultivator. Even he didn't dare to speak so arrogantly in front of everyone. This wasn't just Xiao Hua's declaration, but the declaration of the entire Tao sect. This was a challenge to all Confucian cultivators. He really did not know where Xiao Hua's confidence came from. Even if Xiao Hua was already very formidable in exalted Sun Kong's eyes, he only had the strength of a low-rank 5th-grade essence energy. How could he dare to say such words? Brother Daoran. Sun Kong's eyes flashed with a strange light, and he transmitted his voice. You really don't know this. Taoist Xiao. Zhang Daoran was equally astonished. He transmitted his voice. This is indeed the first time this old man has seen and heard of. He reminds me of someone. Not bad. Zhang Daoran nodded in understanding as well. That spirit of looking down on all Confucian cultivators in the world and laughing proudly in the 3 continents is very similar to him. What do you think? Sun Kong Shengren's voice was actually trembling. It was unknown whether it was excitement or fear. Zhang Daoran bit his lips and asked, Brother Sun Kong, what do you think? It doesn't matter what I think, because I haven't reached the crucial point of breaking through yet. Sun Kong Shengren narrowed his eyes. And you're only half a step away from entering the out-of-body realm. You should give the immortal palace a reason to be at ease. You should give the aristocratic family of Confucian cultivators a reason to be at ease. Maybe. Zhang Daoran's face showed a hint of excitement. This old man should also make a choice. Then, Zhang Daoran suddenly asked again. What about you? What do you want to do? Me. Sun Kong Shengren raised his eyebrows and looked at the several feet in front of him. That macaque called Chang Gung was gnawing on a tricolored pearl. In front of it, at the place where the splendor flashed, a square several feet in size was emitting a faint glow. This glow was even weaker than a firefly's in the shaking space. If not for the macaque's lead, Sun Kong Shengren would not have been able to find it. This old man came here for the Azure Abyss Dragon saliva. As Brother Daoran said, it won't be too late to talk about it after we get out of Yaotai Mountain alive. Old fox. Zhang Daoran shook his head and looked at the magic treasure in his hand smashing away the falling rocks. They're here. Sun Kong Shengren did not care about Zhang Daoran's evaluation. He raised his hand and stroked Chang Gung's head. He said in a low voice, Open the door, Gigi. The macaque unhappily threw the tricolored pearl into its mouth. Its cheeks bulged and the splendor in its eyes shot out several feet. However, when the splendor landed in the square, it only caused the splendor to flicker slightly and the appearance of the door to become clearer. Other than that, there were no other special changes. Sun Kong Shengren rolled up his Taoist robe, and the macaque disappeared. He then said to Zhang Daoran, Brother Daoran, stay here. This old man will go first and open the way for you at the defensive formation. Thank you, Brother Sun Kong. If it was before, Zhang Daoran definitely would not have dared to believe Sun Kong Shengren. However, After seeing Xiao Hua's great ability, Zhang Daoran could not help but feel a sense of trust. Brother Sun Kong? Hee. Sun Kong Shangren's body flickered with splendor. He waved his hand, and the green whip left his hand. It transformed into a long snake that protected his body. When we leave Yaotai Mountain, this old man wants to see who is the elder brother, and who is the younger brother. As you wish, a trace of warmth gushed out from Zhang Daoran's heart, and his figure suddenly expanded. He turned his head and said proudly, "Brother Xiao, take a rest. This old brother will come to your rescue." Hee. Sun Kong Shangren shook his head slightly, and threw himself towards the square, that was several feet in size. Faint gray threads flickered on the square, and Sun Kong Shangren's body disappeared. Zhang Daoran flew in the air, and blocked the huge rock above everyone's head. The group of cultivators did not dare to be negligent. First, a few nascent soul cultivators rushed through the exit. Then, all the nascent soul cultivators stopped and waited for the golden core cultivators to pass. Those golden core cultivators cupped their hands towards everyone and also passed. At this time, the nascent soul cultivators that were waiting quietly moved their bodies. Xiaohua looked at the modesty of these cultivators with a smile. He was very satisfied in his heart. This kind of atmosphere was what Dao cultivators should have. When the last cultivator turned his head and looked at Xiaohua, he nodded slightly at him and disappeared into the exit. Zhang Daoran also descended from the air. The huge rock in the air now was far from what it was before. In just a moment, Zhang Daoran's face was already somewhat flushed. Seeing that Xiaohua was still standing at the exit without moving, Zhang Daoran raised his head and looked at the huge rock that came crashing down from the sky. He urged, "Brother Xiao, you go first. This old brother will cover your back." "No need. This Xiao does not want to leave for the time being." Xiaohua's reply made Zhang Daoran's jaw drop. You don't want to leave? What are you doing here?" Zhang Daoran asked somewhat strangely. Xiaohua smiled slightly and said, "This defensive formation is so dangerous. Unless you and I are at the upper 4th grade of essence power, we cannot withstand it. If other cultivators mistakenly enter this place, they will only end up losing their lives on the spot. This Xiao will wait for a few more days. If someone falls in here, I can still save a few lives." "No, it can't be." Zhang Daoran was almost moved to tears by Xiaohua's nobility. However, when he looked at Xiaohua's smiling face, he seemed to understand something. He raised his head and looked at the huge rock that came crashing down on the top of his head. He hurriedly raised his hand and took out a jade eye and a few bottles of medicinal pills from his Qingquan bag. He handed them to Xiaohua and said, "Brother Xiao, take care of yourself. This is the location of this old brother's abode. If you leave Yaotai Mountain, regardless of whether this old brother is here or not, you have to go to Grand Wind Mountain." Xiaohua was also not polite. He took the jade eye and medicinal pills and nodded. "Don't worry, old brother. This Xiao will be fine. You will also be fine." Boom! It was also at this time that Xiaohua released his divine sense and blasted a huge rock that came crashing down. Zhang Daoran smiled bitterly and cupped his hands towards Xiaohua. His figure also fell into the exit. After Zhang Daoran left, Xiaohua stretched his body. His gaze swept over the huge rocks that covered the sky and earth. He secretly smiled and said, "This Xiao has already obtained the Imperial Preceptor's lot. There is no reason for me to fight over the treasures with you guys. This Jade Pavilion gathering's defensive formations come one after another. This Xiao has no intention of breaking through them one by one. Moreover, this Xiao has a feeling that as long as I stay in this defensive formation, I will be able to find the whereabouts of green-robed Xiaohua. Why should this Xiao give up what is close at hand and seek what is far away? Moreover, this Xiao has already regretted breaking out of the bewildering formation on the Sunset Island. Now, isn't this giant rock-falling formation 100 times more useful than the bewildering formation on the Sunset Island? If this Xiao doesn't cultivate here, then this Xiao's brain must be damaged." While speaking, Xiaohua urged his magic power and displayed the wind evasion technique. His entire body was like a gust of wind as he danced in the rain of huge rocks. At the same time, His mind mixed with divine sense still rushed out and condensed 100 zhang above his head. Now that Xiaohua was flying a long distance, he naturally had to rely on the lightning evasion technique. Moreover, the lightning evasion technique had just broken through and had already reached the lightning soaring realm. For the time being, it was impossible for him to make any further progress. His wind evasion technique was originally used in combination with the ethereal steps for short distances. Just now, he had used up a lot of his magic power to activate the lightning evasion technique. When he was moving around in the space again, it was naturally better to use the wind evasion technique. Therefore, he was determined to cultivate the wind evasion technique to the extreme here. The flowing cloud movement technique was given to him by the Empress of the 10,000 Demon Realm. Although it was only the most basic cultivation technique, it was still very difficult to cultivate. Xiaohua's figure floated back and forth in the rain of huge rocks, always dodging the bombardment of the huge rocks at an incredible speed. In the beginning, Xiaohua frequently made mistakes. The huge rocks flashed brilliantly and fiercely smashed onto Xiaohua's body. Sometimes it smashed Xiaohua's flesh and blood, and sometimes it smashed him 100 zhang away. However, every time Xiaohua's body was surrounded by the heaven and earth yuan qi, the injuries on his body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not even half a drop of blood fell. After cultivating for several days, just as Xiaohua was sent flying by a huge rock, he heard several screams in the distance. Xiaohua frowned and said in a low voice, "Oh, this Xiao was right. Could it be that a cultivator really fell here?" Then Xiaohua released his divine sense. Sure enough, he saw more than 10 nascent soul and golden core cultivators, standing in the air with pale faces. They were hurriedly summoning magic weapons. Chapter 3641. When Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, everyone was overjoyed. They tried their best to urge their magic treasures to resist while calling for help. Xiaohua flew over and released his divine sense to protect everyone. He smiled and said, "This old man is Xiaohua of Yu Prefecture. Now, I can save all of you from this giant stone formation, but this old man wants to make a deal with you." When the crowd of cultivators saw that Xiaohua didn't use any divine ability and just used his divine sense to smash the boulders above their heads, they were already dumbfounded and looked at Xiaohua as a god. When they heard that Xiaohua wanted to make a deal with them, how could they not agree? They hurriedly nodded like chicks pecking rice. "You all have made a heart oath and served this old man for 500 years. This old man will provide everything you need during this period." Xiaohua didn't hesitate and went straight to the point. "Good." A shrewd person hurriedly nodded when he heard Xiaohua's voice. "Junior Lan is willing to serve Taoist Xiao for 500 years. Good, close your eyes, don't resist." Xiaohua also didn't hesitate and separated his divine sense to cover this early nascent soul cultivator, and immediately put him into the space. Seeing Lan disappear, the 7 or 8 gold core disciples didn't dare to think too much and hurriedly made a blood oath. Xiaohua also put him into the space. "Senior is a Dao disciple? You're not a Confucian cultivator, right?" The remaining 4 mid-nascent soul cultivators were somewhat hesitant, afraid that they would fall into a Confucian cultivator's trap. "If this old man is a Confucian cultivator, your blood oath will be invalid." Xiaohua was somewhat impatient. "This old man is pressed for time, quickly decide." "Yes, this junior obeys." The 4 cultivators were helpless and hurriedly made a blood oath and entered Xiaohua's space like Lan. "Hee, you all can slowly sleep. When you get out, won't this Zhao's fortune gate be the #1 Dao gate in the hidden immortal continent?" Xiaohua laughed and shattered a huge falling stone. Looking at the flying rocks, Xiaohua's figure flashed, and he really passed through the gap between 2 large rocks like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, Xiaohua had already been practicing the wind escape technique for more than 2 months. What surprised Xiaohua was that there seemed to be no end to the boulders. In the end, the boulders stopped increasing in size. The entire space was filled with boulders, and there was also a limit to how far they fell. They did not force Xiaohua to escape through the exit. In these 2 months, Xiaohua had already finished cultivating the wind escape technique, and his spiritual sense technique had also reached its limit. At the same time, like Royal Highness Lan, another 10 nascent soul stage cultivators and 30 golden core stage cultivators had mistakenly entered. Xiaohua didn't hesitate to put them into his space. At this time, although Xiaohua's magic power had not been exhausted, his mind was very tired, and he seemed to be on the verge of collapse. That's right. Such a vigorous cultivation method. I'm afraid you can't find another in the entire hidden immortal continent, right? Forget it. It's time for me to leave. Xiaohua flew to the exit. The exit was the same as what Xiaohua had been paying attention to, and there were no changes. However, looking at the brilliance of the exit, Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something. He couldn't help but look back. When he saw a boulder falling like a meteor, Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said regretfully, "Damn it, I was so careless. I only thought about tempering my spiritual sense and comprehending the wind escape technique, and forgot about the immortal body bestowment technique." This was the original intention of this Xiao to stay behind. However, although Xiaohua thought of this, he was really tired. He wanted to fly out from the exit, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return. But now, where could he rest in this space? What if I sit on the boulder? Xiaohua had some strange ideas. When Xiaohua flew to a boulder, he found that he couldn't, because the boulder seemed to have some kind of suction force. His body wasn't sucked in by the suction force, and he couldn't keep up with the boulder. Of course, he could also use his magic power, but in this way, wouldn't he be unable to rest? Damn it. Suddenly Xiaohua woke up again. If I can't do it on the boulder, then I can definitely do it under the boulder or inside the boulder. Thinking of this, Xiaohua immediately flew under the boulder without saying a word. He used the wishful staff to cut a big hole in the place where the sparks were flying, and then very comfortably drilled in. Sitting in the boulder, although the entire boulder was very hot, and the friction outside with the space was very destructive to the cultivator's body, it was really a piece of cake for Xiaohua. Alas, people are always in a panic. If I calm down, this boulder array is not a particularly dangerous place. At this time, Xiaohua closed his eyes slightly to rest and thought to himself, the way to hide in this boulder is very simple. But not only this Xiao didn't think of it, even Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong didn't think of it. None of the dozens of cultivators who fell into this array thought of it. As long as I hide in this boulder, wouldn't everything be fine? However, Xiaohua was still wrong. Seeing such huge falling stones like rain, who would dare to think of finding a place to rest in these falling stones? Even if someone could think of this, they would have to be able to fly faster than the falling stones, and be prepared to be smashed into meat paste by the falling stones. In particular, they would have to have the ability to resist the high temperature of the boulder. Now that he had all these divine abilities, he also had to have courage that was several times greater than that of ordinary cultivators. Who would think so much in a crisis? Therefore, others couldn't do it, only Xiaohua could do it. Others could only escape from here, and only Xiaohua could cultivate here. Xiaohua fell asleep sweetly, leaving Dragon Vein Xiaohua in the body on guard. Damn it, you're still talking about others, but aren't you also a coward? Dragon Vein Xiaohua was very helpless. You're resting, but we're still here. Isn't it good to go out and play? Of course, Dragon Vein Xiaohua was just saying. He also knew the importance of this body, and was very vigilant in the body. After sleeping for a full 3 days, Xiaohua got up and looked outside the boulder. It was still falling stones. Damn it, how big is this defensive formation? The boulder has been flying for 3 days, and still hasn't fallen to the ground. Actually, Xiaohua was only answering his own question. He scanned with his divine sense, and knew that he was still inside the defensive formation. He already understood that the falling stones inside the defensive formation should be in a cycle. It was impossible for this defensive formation to have no end. It's just that the falling stones of the defensive formation never stopped. Xiaohua stretched his body, and rushed out with his divine sense. In an instant, he smashed the boulder into pieces and jumped out. He was secretly surprised. However, if the falling stones didn't stop, Xiao Hua could continue cultivating. He was looking forward to it. The first 2 months of cultivation was to hide. Next, Xiao Hua would have to face it head-on. Among the body refining techniques he obtained, there was a secret technique to use boulders and other objects to temper the body. It's just that Xiao Hua never had the chance. This falling stone formation was really prepared for him. Although I need to cultivate, I also need to be alive. Xiao Hua didn't dare to start with a boulder that was too big. He scanned the area with his divine perception and found a seemingly suitable one. He executed the wind escape technique and chased after the boulder. After estimating that he could withstand the force, he flew to the bottom of the boulder and immediately executed the Sunset Island's body refining secret technique. Boom! The boulder fell on Xiao Hua's body and made him roll a few times. Xiao Hua's Taoist robe was torn, and his body emitted a faint dark golden brilliance. Good again. Xiao Hua's face was somewhat pale. He urged his body and rushed up again. Boom! Boom! The rumbling sounds didn't stop. Previously, it was Xiao Hua who was torturing the boulder formation. Now it was the boulder formation that was torturing Xiao Hua. An eye for an eye, nothing more. Of course, it was only half a day. Xiao Hua suddenly had a strange idea. As if this guy was never peaceful. Guzhen actually has the strength of a 5th-grade essence force, with more than 200 years of cultivation. This Zhao's Buddha Saraira is also the body of the future Buddha Lord. Why can't it? The exquisite temple has records of Buddhism. Moreover, there is the strength of a 10,000-year-old Buddha for Bodhi to temper his golden body. Inside this boulder formation, can't this Xiao also cultivate the power of mountains? While thinking, Xiao Hua also took out his Buddha Saraira. The moment the future Buddha Lord appeared, boom! The entire defensive formation was filled with heavenly flowers like rain. A Buddha light soared into the sky. Psychokinesis broke through the air like a stream and poured into Bodhi's body. Thousands of Sanskrit chants sounded in the defensive formation, and heavenly dragons circled around the Buddha Saraira. Once the Buddha Saraira's vision appeared, the Buddha light directly penetrated the defensive formation. The ordinary immortal soldiers on the defensive formation immediately sensed it. The immortal soldiers didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly went to report. Not long after, an immortal general with a horse face and a protruding forehead flew over on an auspicious cloud. Looking at the thinning psychokinesis, he revealed a trace of a sinister smile. I really didn't expect that the bald donkey, who hasn't appeared for so many years, would actually come to my Yaotai mountain to make trouble today. No wonder the boulder formation in the star formation hasn't stopped moving for several months. It turns out that someone is using a Buddhist divine ability inside. Zhu Erlang. Sir, please give your orders. The immortal soldier next to him hurriedly bowed and said. The horse-faced star monarch took out a star-like jade pendant from his bosom. Thousands of starlight flickered inside the jade pendant. The star monarch handed the jade pendant to the immortal soldier and said, "Send this star chart into the defensive formation and fully activate it. This old man wants to see how long this bald donkey of the Buddhist sect can last." Yes. The immortal soldier took the jade pendant and hurriedly left. A moment later, specks of starlight appeared on the blood-colored light. Boom boom. The whole space shook violently. Even the light was tumbling. After the time it took to eat a meal, the light stabilized. However, the light became even redder, and its color was very frightening. Boom! At this moment, a pillar of awe-inspiring chi rushed out of the void. The space beside the horse-faced star monarch was extremely distorted. After several crystal threads condensed from awe-inspiring chi flashed, Kong Hongwu's figure appeared. As soon as Kong Hongwu appeared, his face was filled with confusion. He scolded in a low voice. Star Sun Horse Taisher Zhanran, why did you send the star chart into the defensive formation? Don't you know that the star chart of the defensive formation can only be used at the end? Chapter 3642. Hallmaster, Taisher Zhanran naturally did not expect Kong Hongwu to come. Hearing Kong Hongwu's reprimand, he hurriedly bowed and said, "There is a Buddhist disciple in the star array under my jurisdiction, and this disciple has been staying in the array for more than a few months." What? Your array has been going on for several months? Could it be that the Buddhist disciple in the array has discovered something? Kong Hongwu's face showed a trace of anxiety. If the Tao sect knew about the immortal palace, he might not be afraid. But if the Buddhist sect caught a whiff of something, then how could he cover it up? Taisher Zhanran nodded. That's right. I was afraid that the Buddhist disciple would discover something. So I sent the star map into the array. Once the star map is out, the entire array will operate to the extreme. Even if we don't force him out, we must kill him. Why force him out? Just kill him. Kong Hongwu snorted coldly. If the Buddhist disciple discovers the abnormality in this Yaotai gathering, how can my Star Lord Hall still stay in the hidden immortal continent? How can you and I have the face to return to the immortal palace? In fact, Taisher Zhanran had already noticed this abnormality, but he did not dare to ask more. He absolutely did not want to know the truth. Now that a Buddhist disciple had appeared in his star array, if there was really an accident, then he would not be able to bear the consequences. Yes, I understand. Taisher Zhanran bowed and said, I will never let this Buddhist disciple out of the array alive. And you keep a close eye on this old man. If there is any abnormality, immediately report it. Outside the array, the river of telekinesis that penetrated the array gradually disappeared. Kong Hongwu suppressed his impulse to enter the array personally, gritted his teeth and said, If there is any mistake, I don't need to say anything. You know the consequences. I understand. Taisher Zhanran's face tightened, and he hurriedly replied, I will not make things difficult for the hall master. Kong Hongwu stared at the thick clouds for a long time. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and said angrily, Damn it! After saying that, his whole body was suffused with a tricolored fog, and his figure disappeared into the void with the fog. Phew! Taisher Zhanran let out a long sigh and raised his voice. My sons, quickly activate the defensive array. If this old man receives any punishment, none of you will be able to live. Yes. As the voice sounded, streams of noble chi mixed with thousands of starlight rushed into the blood-red light. Back in the star array, Bodhi's 5-foot-tall golden body grew visibly. The golden body emitted a holy Buddhist light, and as psyche power poured in, the Buddhist Sarira formed a Buddhist mudra with both hands and said, Namo Maitreya Buddha. This humble monk Bodhi greets Xiao Tanyua. Boundless holy man. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He also recited his Tao name and said, One is this Xiaosheng, the other is this poor monk. It seems like this Xiao can only call himself I. Sandalwood is a Taoist cultivator to begin with, so of course he's I. Subhoodie said with a grin. And this poor monk is a Buddhist disciple, so of course he has to address me as this poor monk. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Is this star formation suitable for fellow immortal to cultivate? Can I use the Buddhist techniques of the Xilinglong Temple? I'll let fellow immortal know that there are no secret techniques in Buddhism. Everything is in the Buddhist scriptures. The so-called Buddhist techniques are nothing more than methods to subdue demons. They are all external things. Subhoodie's smile was very benevolent as he said faintly, This poor monk has been meditating in the Linglong Pagoda for a long time. Now it's okay for me to move my muscles and bones. Okay. Xiaohua nodded. I'll leave everything to fellow immortal. You and I are one, in this defensive array. Fellow immortal can freely use it. As Sandalwood wishes. Bodhi's body flashed with Buddhist light, and his hands formed a Buddhist mudra. Rumble. With a loud sound, the huge rock smashed into several pieces, and Subhoodie's golden body rapidly flashed and dimmed a bit. Good. Seeing this, Xiaohua no longer paid attention to Subhoodie, and he collided with the falling rock again. In the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Kacha. Thousands of thunderbolts appeared in the sky, and after each thunderbolt, a dark red light spot appeared. After a moment, the thunderbolts not only did not decrease, but instead became louder. The space that was already shaking shook again. The dark red light spots could now be seen clearly. They were huge burning balls, dragging thick smoke and flames, and were denser than the rain of falling rocks. At the same time, the terrifying aura of death once again shrouded the entire space. Seeing such a big phenomenon, Xiaohua's heart tightened. and he urged the wind escape to fly toward the exit of the defensive array. However, just as he moved, he heard Buddha's relic Subhuti chanting in the sky, Namo Maitreya Buddha. What is life? What is death? Where there is life, there is death. And where there is death, there is life. Life is Amitabha Buddha. Death is Maitreya Buddha. Without yesterday's life, how can today's death be? Without today's death, how can tomorrow's life be? Boom! As soon as Subhuti said this, a thunderbolt appeared in Xiao Hua's mind, and a problem that he had been pondering before appeared in his mind. That's right, this world has the Buddha of the past, the Buddha of the present, and the Buddha of the future. Although there are thousands of Buddhas, they can represent the past, present, and future, and naturally have the Buddhist principles of these Buddha lords. The Buddha of the past should be a Buddha born in the past. The Buddha of the present should be a Buddha undergoing nirvana, and the Buddha of the future might be a Buddha undergoing nirvana in the future. If one doesn't experience death, if one doesn't experience nirvana, how can one achieve karma? Although Subhuti has yet to fully comprehend the true meaning of the exquisite temple's Buddhist scriptures, this Xiao's thoughts may not be correct. But since Subhuti is willing to face this death tribulation here, why can't this Xiao fulfill his wish? Guzhen can reach the peak of demon-subduing methods in a short time, and seeking life and death is also one of his methods. Good. Thinking up to here, Xiao Hua's eyes slightly narrowed. This Xiao will accompany Subhuti and the star monarch guarding the formation. This Xiao wants to see whether Buddha is 10 feet taller, or Confucian is 10 feet taller. Whoa! An extremely sharp screeching sound descended from the sky, and a scorching hot aura assaulted Xiao Hua's face like lava. Even from far away, that noisy gale blew against Xiao Hua's dark golden skin, causing his muscles to undulate. A huge sphere fell from the sky. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. While urging his escape technique to rush into the sky, he also urged his heavenly body infusion technique, and the body refining technique of the setting sun island continuously operated. This was especially true for Bodhi. His eyes were filled with benevolence as he formed the Akala seal with his hands. Countless golden runes and Sanskrit characters flowed all over his body. The streams that appeared in the void also contained Buddhist principles flowing within his golden body. Boom! With a loud sound, a hole dozens of feet wide was created in the huge sphere, and the sphere continued to fall. Far away from the hole, a damaged relic golden body stood in the air with difficulty. A fist-sized relic fell into the golden body, and as Subhuti chanted Buddhist mantras, the relic immediately turned into golden liquid, and as the golden runes flowed around the golden body, the damaged parts were repaired extremely quickly. Dozens of feet below Subhuti, Xiao Hua crawled up from the sky, his skin torn and his flesh lacerated. The world's origin energy rushed in like a hurricane, and traces of demonic energy lingered in his body. A dark golden brilliance flashed and trembled, and his injuries also recovered extremely quickly. However, while the demonic energy was rampant, Xiao Hua's eyes were also faintly blood-red. The demonic nature that came from entering the array and killing so many people began to slowly reveal itself. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. Xiao Hua had been cultivating in the defensive formation. Not only had he made great progress in the cultivation of his physical body, but the progress of the Buddha's relic Bodhi had also far exceeded his expectations. Perhaps only now did Xiao Hua understand why those so-called Kutuchuas lived such a difficult life in the eyes of ordinary people. Only this kind of dangerous and almost masochistic cultivation could lead one to great success in Buddhist magic. In just half a year, Subhuti had already broken through 5 feet of golden body and was heading straight for 6 feet. Moreover, this nearly 6 feet golden body was incomparably solid. Xiao Hua had experience in nurturing a nascent soul, and this experience was still useful in cultivating the golden body of Buddhism. The entire Buddha's relic looked even more imposing than Xiao Hua's nascent soul. Of course, in addition to his own cultivation, Xiao Hua also rescued several nascent soul cultivators and dozens of golden core cultivators. However, with the passage of time, the number of cultivators who entered the array gradually decreased. Presumably, The cultivators who were still alive had already passed through this star array and arrived at the distant stars. While Xiaohua's cultivation was advancing by leaps and bounds, Sun Horse of Star Taisher Zhanran, who was outside the array, was restless. He wanted to send out a message several times to invite Kong Hongwu over, but every time he was about to do something, he would hesitate. Similarly, looking at the surging multicolored light and the twinkling starlight within the multicolored light, he was also helpless. This star array was not like the previous array on Jade Mountain. Those arrays could be controlled by Taisher Zhanran and the other star monarchs. However, these star arrays were personally laid down by some mysterious experts of the Immortal Palace. Taisher Zhanran and the other star monarchs could only monitor them, but not control them. Especially, they could not freely enter and exit the star array. Taisher Zhanran really did not dare to take the risk to enter and see what was going on inside. Was it that bald donkey in his heart who built a temple inside? On this day, seeing the immortal soldier report that the nearby array had almost stopped, and the Dao sect cultivators who were able to escape the array had all gathered inside the Crimson Star, he gritted his teeth and jumped up from the clouds. He roared, "Old bald donkey, it seems like you are going to waste your time with me. Good. I don't dare to go in alone. I will find help. I don't believe that the few star monarchs of my Star Monarch Palace are not your opponent." However, Taisher Zhanran angrily took out a scroll of flying crane. Just as he was about to activate it with his true qi, his hand stopped in midair. Besides Jing Mui and Shengguan Yaren's death, there were still 26 star monarchs that could be invited. Similarly, there were 7 star monarchs that could arrive in a short time. Who to invite and who not to invite, Taisher Zhanran naturally had to choose. In just a moment, Taisher Zhanran's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. He had already made his choice. Chapter 3643. Damn it, other than Wood Dragon Linghu Pyron, I really can't let others know about this. This guy is Lord Temple Master's trusted aide. Whatever Lord Temple Master knows, this guy knows as well. Moreover, this guy isn't far from me. He'll be here in the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. Forget it, it's him. This kind of shameful thing, the fewer people who know the better. Taisher Zhanran actually thought of Linghu Pyron at this crucial moment. Finished thinking, Taisher Zhanran activated the scroll. A flying crane rushed into the sky and disappeared. Who knew that this flying crane would fly back, after not seeing it for half a day like a meat bun hitting a dog? It can't be. The impatient Taisher Zhanran was flabbergasted and secretly said, "Could it be? Linghu's side also has difficulties?" Just as he was thinking, boom! A huge roar came from the distant horizon. Then a scarlet-red light shone brightly. The clouds above the entire defensive array were like waves. Through the clouds and the light, Taisher Zhanran could clearly see the origin of the loud sound. The crimson star that was previously hanging in the air was now moving again. It was like a huge bullet rushing towards the pure white moon in the distance. Scarlet Star Lingyu? Taisher Zhanran's face showed disbelief. Damn it, Dao sect cultivators are really powerful. They really broke this Scarlet Star chain array? Then wouldn't the treasure above the Scarlet Star be taken by them? AI, it's really a pity. Schwa. Just when Taisher Zhanran was smacking his lips, with a face full of regret that a good cabbage had been eaten by a pig, a towering snow-colored brilliance covered the sky and sprinkled down. That crimson star that had rushed into Hao Yu was swallowed by Hao Yu, and Hao Yu's brilliance instantly replaced the previous blood-red clouds. However, the most discordant thing happened. Under Taisher Zhanran's feet, the star was still scarlet. Damn it! Taisher Zhanran's face was slightly hot. Just as he was about to send out the immortal soldiers and immortal generals to investigate, the flying crane flew back. Then from the depths of the clouds, a Confucian scholar stepped on the clouds. Wasn't it Linghu Pyron? Taisher Zhanran didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly greeted and bowed. "Brother Linghu, where did you go? This little brother has been waiting for you impatiently." He, Brother Taisher, what's the matter? I had some things to take a look at the Crimson Star Great Array, so I was a little late to pick up Brother's flying crane. After Linghu Pyron returned the salute, He glanced at the cloud under his feet and said with a smile, "Oh, why did Brother Linghu go to the Crimson Star Great Array?" Taisher Zhanran asked curiously. Which Taoist cultivator obtained the Crimson Star's unique treasure? It's nothing much. It's just that the Hall Master sent me to do something. Linghu Pairan indifferently replied. As for who obtained it, I'm afraid Brother Taisher also knows. It's the Taoist cultivator who escaped from Brother's formation. Zhang Daoran. Taisher Zhanran called out the name without hesitation. That's right, it's him. Linghu Pairan had a strange expression and said, I heard that this guy was at odds with Sun Kong Shangren and the others. But in the Crimson Star Great Array, the two of them actually joined forces and led nearly 100 cultivators. The other forces like Shai Xingzi and Taoist Huda were no match for them. That unique treasure was obtained by the two of them with great difficulty. And the strangest thing was that the one who obtained the unique treasure first was Sun Kong Shangren. This arrogant little guy looked at the thing inside and immediately threw it to Zhang Daoran, as if the two of them had already discussed it. Taisher Zhanran frowned and said in a low voice, In that case, even in the Crimson Star Great Array, the Taoist cultivators didn't die too many? Brother Linghu went because of this? Oh, I didn't go because of this. Linghu Pairan replied. But as Brother said, the number of nascent soul cultivators that died in the Crimson Star Great Array was really too few. The Hall Master is really dissatisfied. I'm afraid he'll do something about the Bright Moon Great Array. By the way, Brother, why did you call me here in such a hurry? What's the matter? When Taisher Zhanran heard this, a bitter smile appeared on his face. He pointed at the clouds under his feet and helplessly said, Little brother, there is a Buddhist expert hidden in this star array. I don't know why he hasn't left. Little brother has already received orders from the Temple Lord to kill this Buddha in the array. And I've already used my star chart, but I haven't killed him yet. I've run out of tricks, so I thought of Brother Linghu. I want to ask Brother Linghu to join forces with me to enter the star array and kill him. What Buddhist expert? Even the star chart left behind by the Immortal Palace can't kill him? Linghu Pairan heard this and unconsciously frowned. This kind of expert, can you and I do it? Brother Linghu, the Crimson Star Great Array has been destroyed. Now the Bright Moon Great Array is right in front of us. But the inside of this little brother's star array is still crimson. Taisher Zhanran was a little anxious. However, before he could finish, Linghu Pairan waved his hand and said, If that's the case, Brother Taisher, you don't need to worry. On my way here, I've passed by more than a dozen star arrays guarded by other star lords. You can rest assured that some of their star arrays are still alive, and their star arrays are also crimson red. Oh, Taisher Zhanran breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. That's good, that's good. Linghu Pairan thought for a while, flipped his hand, and took out a foot-long star shuttle, handed it to Taisher Zhanran and said, How about this? This one still has some important matters to attend to. I can't enter the star array for the time being. This is the star shuttle left behind by the Immortal Palace. Observe for a while. If you still can't kill him, how about you send a message to this one? Seeing that Linghu Pairan didn't want to enter the star array, Taisher Zhanran was helpless. Since his star chart couldn't do anything, how could this star shuttle be effective? However, he didn't dare to say much. He took the star shuttle and smiled. Then many thanks, Brother Linghu. I hope this star shuttle can succeed. Let's try it first. It's better than nothing. Linghu Pairan certainly understood what Taisher Zhanran was thinking. This one really can't split himself. I'll come help you after completing the task given by Sir Temple Master. Finished speaking, Linghu Pairan cupped his fists and hurriedly left. From the beginning to the end, he didn't tell Taisher Zhanran what he was going to do. Go. Although Taisher Zhanran felt that this star shuttle might not be useful, he still flew to a place guarded by immortal generals. With a wave of his hand, the star shuttle fell into the red clouds. With a crackling sound of thunder, it disappeared. I hope it works. Taisher Zhanran stood on the red clouds and stared at the crimson clouds, hoping that they would quickly turn white. Once the star shuttle entered the star array, Xiaohua was out of luck. With a thunderous sound, the star shuttle turned into a huge meteor. Surrounded by flickering lightning, it fell towards the giant star high up in the starry sky. Hong! The meteor crashed into the giant star and let out a loud explosion. The huge sphere unbelievably disintegrated. Then, the fragments of the sphere fell from the sky again. Not only did they smash the huge rocks that were on top of the giant rock, but some of the meteors formed by the star chart were also destroyed by these huge rocks. Sii. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air as he watched the huge object fall. With a quick thought, he activated the Heavenly Laws embodiment technique. His avatar grew to a size of 1,000 feet and rushed towards the smallest fragment. Similarly, Bodhi's golden avatar also flowed with Buddhist light. Several relics merged into the golden avatar. His mouth chanted incantations, and he formed the Akala seal. His face was still that kind of compassionate expression as he rushed towards the giant rock. Xiaohua's persistence made Taisher Zhanran scratch his head. Several months later, the immortal soldiers he sent out came back one by one to report. The remaining dozen or so crimson star arrays in the bright moon great array were extinguished one by one. However, the star array under his feet was still tenaciously emitting a crimson brilliance. The rumbling sound from the star array never stopped, but the Buddhist sex expert did not come out. Sometimes, Taisher Zhanran almost believed that not only did the monk build a hut inside the celestial formation, but he also found a beautiful nun to dual cultivate with. Maybe there was even a little monk inside teaching the little monk the Dharma. There was also that damned Ling Hupiren. Ever since he gave Taisher Zhanran a star shuttle, he never showed up again. Taisher Zhanran knew that the flying crane might not be useful, so he specially sent a few immortal generals to invite him. However, Ling Hupiren's army gave Taisher Zhanran the same answer. General Ling Hu is not in the barracks. Of course, Taisher Zhanran didn't care whether Ling Hupiren was in the barracks or not. What he cared about was who could help him quickly kill the Buddhist sex expert in the star array. Therefore, when he couldn't wait for Ling Hupiren, he had no choice but to find another helper, Fire Tiger Ouyang Jingran. Ouyang Jingran was a female cultivator, but she didn't have the slightest grace of a female cultivator. If it weren't for the bulging chest that made her different from Taisher Zhanran, she could almost be mistaken for a man. However, the only difference at this time was that she was covered by a pink armor. The inscriptions on her big black face that looked like tiger stripes made Taisher Zhanran feel a little nauseous. Looking at Ouyang Jingran standing on a white tiger that was a few feet tall, Taisher Zhanran cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Fairy Ouyang, please." Ouyang Jingran's thick lips moved slightly, and the corners of her mouth that had some fine hairs curled up. Her hoarse voice sounded, "Taisher, don't be mysterious. Tell me what's the matter." Taisher Zhanran saw Ouyang Jingran call him Taisher instead of Sun Horse of the Star, and immediately knew that there was hope, so he hurriedly told her about his matter. Gij. Ouyang Jingran listened, looked at the blood-red clouds under her feet and laughed. The laughter that should have been pleasant to the ear sounded like a broken gong in Taisher Zhanran's ears. "So that's how it is. No wonder you were anxious." This old lady's star array previously trapped a Dao sect cultivator named Zhai Xingzi. This old lady could have killed him in the array, but this old lady was careless and let him gather dozens of other cultivators and escape openly. For this reason, the temple master personally came to the star array and reprimanded this old lady. His grandmother, isn't it just a late nascent soul Dao sect disciple? What's so great about running away? Chapter 3644. Taisher Zhanran knew that Ouyang Jingran was not shrewd and had always been careless. Not only did she not notice the strangeness of the star array while standing on the blood-red clouds of his star array, it was even more impossible for her to know the secret that the temple master wanted to kill a nascent soul cultivator. Of course, he did not dare to say much. He could only smile bitterly. "Yes, fairy, didn't you see? You lost a Zhai Xingzi, and the temple master got angry. If I let this Buddhist master go, won't the temple master take my head? It's good that you took it, just as a chamber pot." Ouyang Jingran covered her mouth and laughed. Obviously, She was very comfortable with being called a fairy, but this coquettish gesture was really not complimentary. In particular, the words from the mouth of this so-called fairy made Taisher Zhanran's face even more purple. Fairy, Lord Hallmaster may not really take this little brother's head, but in the future, this little brother's life will certainly not be easy. Our Star Lord Hall's 28 Star Lords are all in the same boat. Fairy won't watch this little brother's later life be miserable, right? Taisher Zhanran threw caution to the wind. He didn't want his 1,000 years of face anymore, and said with a smile. The words "in the same boat" made Ouyang Jingran's heart sad. She stopped smiling, and her teasing eyes flashed with a trace of bitterness. She then nodded and said, "In that case, tell me, how do you want me to cooperate? That old monk has been arrogant in the star array for nearly a year. If he didn't have a superhuman cultivation, how could he dare to do so? I didn't dare to go in, because I wasn't sure. Since Fairy agrees, we will rush into the array and kill him," Taisher Zhanran said fiercely. Ouyang Jingran thought for a moment and shook her head slightly. "You want me to accompany you to die? Don't you know the power of this star array? You and I can't control this star array. If you and I rush in, we will be in the same situation as the old monk. There is no convenience. The old monk is already familiar with the star array, but we are not. Not to mention meeting face to face, we might not even see it. You and I will become the second Wellwood puppet." How could Taisher Zhanran not have such calculations? He was just giving Ouyang Jingran some face. Even if Ouyang Jingran agreed to go in, he would definitely find a reason to make her say those words again. Therefore, when he heard that Ouyang Jingran disagreed, he immediately said modestly, "That's right. Little brother has been too anxious these days. Fairy is right. Then what does Fairy think? Wait for the hair to appear." Ouyang Jingran indifferently spat out these words. "My great aunt. This little brother has been guarding this tree for almost a year. The little rabbit in the tree is about to come out," Taisher Zhanran said with a bitter face. "Do you have any other ideas?" "No." Ouyang Jingran shrugged his thick shoulders under his armor, and his thick lips revealed a harmless smile. Taisher Zhanran cursed in his heart. He knew that Ouyang Jingran wasn't someone easy to deal with. Just as he was about to speak, the trembling clouds suddenly stopped. The blood-red color gradually dimmed, as if it was being washed away by rain. Taisher Zhanran stared blankly. The happiness he had been looking forward to for so many days had suddenly arrived. He couldn't believe it. "Quick!" Ouyang Jingran saw the opportunity quickly and shouted. "Where is the exit of your star array? Let's go quickly and block this old monk in the fault of the star array. We are powerless to control the star array, but the fault, we are at least familiar with it." "Many thanks, Fairy." Taisher Zhanran's figure suddenly swayed, and with a wave of his hand, a strange-shaped star lock appeared in his hand. He spat out true chi from his mouth, and hundreds of falling stars rushed out from the star lock. After falling into the clouds, a faint star path appeared. Taisher Zhanran dove into it, and without turning his head he shouted, "If I kill this old monk, this little brother will owe the fairy a favor. You already owe me now." Ouyang Jingran lifted his foot and kicked the white tiger below him. The white tiger immediately rushed in with Taisher Zhanran as it answered. The two flew into the clouds. The clouds were still calm, but after a while, even the star path they fell into was covered. The clouds of the star array had completely turned into the color of the bright moon. However, the two went for a long time and didn't come out. After waiting for 2 days, Linghu Pairan came over with a face full of doubts and puzzlement. However, when he saw that the color of the star array Taisher Zhanran was guarding had changed, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and seem to relax. However, when he summoned the immortal soldier and asked about Taisher Zhanran's whereabouts, a kind of fear suddenly appeared in his eyes. Of course, this fear was swept away. After sending the immortal soldier away, Linghu Pairan lowered his head and looked at the clouds under his feet. He stretched out his hand, and the previous star shuttle fell into his hand. Looking at the small and exquisite star shuttle, which had lost its previous brilliance, Linghu Pairan narrowed his eyes and bit his lip. No one knew what he was thinking. After half a cup of tea's time, Linghu Pairan put away the star shuttle and raised his hand to take out a star lock. This star lock was a little different from Taisher Zhanran's. But when Linghu Pairan spat out true qi, starlight flew out from the star lock, and a faint star path appeared in the clouds. I hope this old man's guess is wrong. Linghu Pairan's face was cautious, but he was still secretly thinking in his heart. The one left in this star array is not Xiao Hua. Otherwise, the lives of Tailfire Tiger and Sun Horse of Star would be in danger. However, this old man did not see Xiao Hua in the Crimson Star Array. The other Dao cultivators who stayed in the other star arrays were also killed by this old man one by one. If this Xiao Hua was not killed before, then he must have been left in this star array. Taisher and Ouyang have been gone for a long time, and have not returned. I'm afraid they have met with misfortune. Just when Linghu Pairan rushed into the star path, boom! An earth-shattering sound came from afar. The bright moon that had been hanging in the sky all this time suddenly sank. Then, the bright moon's brilliance gradually dimmed. On the contrary, the scorching sun opposite the bright moon suddenly emitted a golden brilliance, and the brightness and heat of the scorching sun continued to increase. It was as if the real sun was slowly rising. Looking at the bright moon that had lost its brilliance again, it rose from the distance and rushed towards the scorching sun like the crimson star from before. Bright moon, rising sun, Linghu Pairan murmured. It seems that the treasure above the bright moon has also been obtained by Dao cultivators. These Dao cultivators, I really do not dare to underestimate them. They are only at the upper 4th grade of origin energy, but they were able to break the Crimson Star Array and the Bright Moon Array. It seems that the Immortal Palace setting up the Sun, Moon, and Star Arrays on Yaotai Mountain is not without reason. However, so what if they broke the Bright Moon Array? So what if they broke the Scorching Sun Array? Linghu Pairan's face showed a trace of a sneer. As long as that array is not broken, the cultivators who did not obtain the treasure jade box will still not be able to leave Yaotai Mountain. However, thinking of this, Linghu Pairan's heart gave birth to a trace of a bad feeling. He did not dare to delay any longer, and hurriedly rushed into the clouds. In merely the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Linghu Pairan rushed out of the clouds with a somewhat pale complexion. He didn't even look at the golden clouds in his surroundings. Instead, he soared into the sky and headed straight for Yaotai Mountain. Xiao Hua hid inside the star array and cultivated to his heart's content. This kind of cultivation was completely different from the Dao's ordinary cultivation. There was no need to guard the body and mind, no need to carefully comprehend the details. What was required was to let go of the state of mind and fight with the heavens and the earth. For a time, within the entire star array, whether it was the collapsed boulder or Xiao Hua's sorry figure, Xiao Hua seemed to have fused with the entire star array. The shock of the whistling sound was merely Xiao Hua's breathing. Seeing that several months had passed, Xiao Hua's strength had once again made inconceivable progress. In particular, later on, Xiao Hua actually tempered his Buddhist sense and soul sense, fusing them with his mind like his divine sense. Not only did his divine sense advance again, his Buddhist sense and soul sense also followed suit and advanced. In fact, if not for the fact that the devil spirit in the blood drop paradise was still in its embryonic form, and had not yet cultivated devil sense, Xiao Hua would have almost mixed his devil sense into it as well. On this day, Xiao Hua's 100 zhang tall figure swayed and soared into the sky like a giant peng. With a boom sound, he hit a huge boulder that was thousands of zhang tall. In the midst of the rumbling sound, that huge boulder shattered with a loud bang. At the same time, Bodhi's Buddha Lord's phantom, which had been cultivated to 100 zhang tall, also rushed towards another huge boulder, not to be outdone. Similarly, a loud rumbling sound resounded, covering the sky and covering the earth as debris fell down. The huge boulder was destroyed, and the Buddha Lord's phantom that was radiating Buddhist light in all directions was also suddenly annihilated. In just a moment, the sound of Sanskrit resounded in all directions. On the undamaged Bodhi's golden body, tens of thousands of golden runes flashed and flowed. The Buddhist light once again propped up the Buddha Lord's phantom. Moreover, in that phantom that seemed to be in the void, strands of thin threads that were hard to see with the naked eye instantly formed. These thin threads came from the void, and were precisely the power of faith. Tsk tisk. Xiao Hua smacked his lips and shook his head with a wry smile. Fellow immortal Bodhi, this is really a little unfair. Your Buddha Lord's Buddha Dharma body is too magical, and this kind of bitter cultivation method is in line with the nirvana way of the golden body. This is why you can catch up with our transcendence golden bodies in such a short time. Can you be content? Bodhi's face remained merciful as he opened his mouth and said, Your divine sense secret technique should not be underestimated. And the Dharma embodiment technique is even more immeasurable. That's why you can make such progress in less than a year. Boom! While speaking, Xiao Hua did not forget to urge his divine sense to transform into a huge palm and smash the huge boulder above his head. Oh right, it's been almost a year, right? Hearing Bodhi mention a year, Xiao Hua suddenly came to his senses. The Jadistage gathering is about to end? I'm afraid so. Bodhi pointed his finger at the sky where the stones were flying and said, The white light around this star array has long been invaded, but it has been blocked by the bloody light of the star array. Presumably, the Jadistage gathering is about to end, and the star array is ready to close. Chapter 3645. Not good. Then we have to leave quickly. Xiao Hua seemed to have awoken from a dream, and reluctantly looked at the star formation that was raining stones. He sighed with emotion. Sigh, I really can't bear to part with it. If only I could cultivate for a few more years. Tan, you should cultivate. Bodhi slowly kept the Buddha statue into the relic and said indifferently, Although Confucian cultivators have the saying, reading 10,000 books is not as good as walking 10,000 miles. And reading 10,000 miles is not as good as reading countless people. If Tanyu doesn't read 10,000 books, what's the use of walking 10,000 miles? If not for the fact that this sovereign has the Buddhist teachings and principles of the Little Linglong Temple, even if this sovereign comes here, I'm afraid that I won't be able to grasp the opportunity in front of me, right? But, Xiao Hua was still arguing, I can't just leave what I promised others to the side, right? Tanyu thinks too much in this world. It's fine to leave anyone. Tanyu feels that he is important, but others may not feel the same way. Without Tanyu, the hidden immortal continent is still the hidden immortal continent. The rise and fall of Jiang country is just a drop in the ocean. It's nothing. While Bodhi was speaking, Xiao Hua also kept his transcendence golden body, and while using his spiritual will to block the boulder, he flew towards the exit of the planet formation. Fellow immortal is the future Buddha Lord, so naturally you want to stay away from the mortal world. Xiao Hua retorted. Oh, this Xiao forgot. Fellow immortal is originally a monk. There is no common ground between people of different paths. Not to mention that my Buddhist sect is out of the world. Your Tao sect is the same. Bodhi explained. As long as one is a cultivator, one must hide from the world and cultivate. The so-called Confucian cultivator is actually not a cultivator. You're not a cultivator. You're a monk. Suddenly, the voice of Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua came out from Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua's mind actually shook a little, as if Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua wanted to snatch control of his body. How dare you? What are you doing? Xiao Hua frowned, his heart shocked, and he shouted, Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, you and I have 10 primordial spirits, but we are still the same person. There is a saying that people of different paths cannot work together. You and I cannot exist. We each comprehend our own wonders and have our own fortuitous encounters. Seeking common ground while reserving differences and attaining the great Tao early is the foundation of our pursuit. It's one thing for you to argue with Subhoodie today, but why are you trying to snatch it from me? This is something that this Xiao did not expect. I can tell you the truth. Whether it's Xiao Hua, Bodhi, or even fellow Taoist Longmai, as long as you have disloyal thoughts, don't blame me for being ruthless. It's impossible for me to split my primordial spirit now, but I have plenty of methods to exterminate your primordial spirit. I'm sure all of you know this. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua did not speak, and Bodhi also lowered his eyebrows. Xiao Hua waved his hand and sent Bodhi into his Naiwan palace. Then he snorted and landed at the exit of the star array. His originally happy mood was now very bad. Immediately, Xiaohua stepped into the same exit with anger on his face. As his figure disappeared, the blood-red brilliance in the star array suddenly disappeared, and the bright moonlight instantly enveloped the whole space. The falling boulders strangely stopped in mid-air at the same time. When the bright moonlight scattered, all the boulders disappeared completely, and the space returned to the original huge sphere, and the belt of boulders around it. However, near the belt of boulders, a star chart and a star shuttle were floating there without any light. Xiaohua frowned and stepped out of the star array. He knew in his heart that his primordial spirits were very different, and each of them cultivated a different divine ability. Whether it was Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, soul demon or demon, they all cultivated different natures. Even the heavenly way Xiaohua and karma Xiaohua in the space were not easy to get along with. Previously, everyone's cultivation was shallow, so the gap and differences were not obvious, but now, as time passed and everyone's comprehension deepened, these differences naturally appeared. He only had one body and one mind, so if he could not be the leader, there would be many drawbacks. However, how to eliminate these drawbacks, and how to make his primordial spirits cultivate in harmony with each other, was something that Xiaohua was now distressed about. Xiaohua even faintly felt that if he could not find the essence of Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, soul, demon and demon respectively, or even the origin of cultivation, the problem of his 10 primordial spirits would never be solved. Alas, Xiaohua was somewhat regretful. That day, he split his primordial spirit too carelessly, and after that, the three-metal heavenly tribulation was also very straightforward. Now, although his 10 primordial spirits had begun to show their power, he could only drink this bitter wine alone. Although this primordial spirit-splitting technique is not the same as before, this Xiao combined the countless strands of ghost cultivation and other secret techniques to form it. However, after all, the original secret technique was also an extremely profound secret technique, so there might be cultivators who comprehended it. But why did no one in the entire Dawn Rain continent cultivate it? I'm afraid that those cultivators who cultivated it have already died, and those who did not cultivate it also did not dare to try it easily. Only this Xiaohua, this pitiful worm, cultivates any secret technique I see, and doesn't know how powerful it is. While thinking, Xiaohua felt his body tighten, and the space in front of him began to circulate. He knew that he was about to enter the next imperial array, but at this moment, the space in front of him suddenly stopped, and the starlight in front of him seemed to be suspended in the air. Even the distorted space ripples also stopped. Oh, what's going on? Could it be that the Jade Pavilion gathering has already ended? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. Suddenly, a chill suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent, and his divine sense smashed towards the stagnant space like a hammer. Kacha! A series of fine sounds rang out, and the distorted space ripples were shattered by Xiaohua. Xiaohua's divine sense now could even shatter star fragments, so the temporary confinement of this imperial array could not do anything to him. Huh? You're a Dao sect cultivator? Not an old bald donkey from the Buddhist sect? Xiaohua's eyes flashed, and he appeared in the previous space again. He saw 2 armored immortal generals standing in the air, quite surprised. One of them was holding a foot-long yellow bamboo pole, and in front of him was a white tiger. The other had a face as long as a horse, and in his hand was a bronze scroll. The surprised voice came from the horse-faced immortal general. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, the immortal general holding the yellow bamboo pole sneered. Why are you talking nonsense with him? Take him down first, then ask him where he came from. The immortal general is right. The horse-faced immortal general was naturally Taisher Zhanran. At this moment, he waved the scroll in his hand, and a soaring righteous chi was produced from the surroundings. It was like a huge bronze lock, sealing Xiaohua within 100 zhang. Looking at Ouyang Jingran holding the bamboo pole, he also waved his bamboo pole, and hundreds of righteous chi swarmed out. These righteous chi were not only vast, but there were also strands of crystal threads flowing within. containing extremely terrifying power. What made Xiaohua most alarmed was that these righteous qi were similar to the righteous qi controlled by Taishu Zhanran. It seemed that each righteous qi complemented each other. The attacks of the two were like two large locks, attacking Xiaohua from two sides, sealing him inside. How are these immortal generals? Xiaohua's eyes narrowed, and he secretly sneered. These are clearly two star monarchs. Damn it, this Xiao has only cultivated in the star array for a year. And you guys are already targeting this Xiao. Now you want to lock this Xiao up without saying anything. Isn't this the same as the Copper Pillar State's constable treating the Seven Suns Temple's master Daoshan? Thinking of Daoshan, Xiaohua, who was originally in a bad mood, was filled with hostility. He coldly looked at the righteous qi locks in front of him and coldly said, "Fighting without declaring it is rude. Joining hands to bully others is shameless. Attacking innocents is untrustworthy. You are the Star Monarchs of Star Monarch's palace in vain. You are actually such untrustworthy, shameless, and rude people that are worse than pigs and dogs. How dare you?" Ouyang Jingran was just flattered by Taishu Zhanran as their immortal general, but now in Xiaohua's mouth, he became a disciple of none. How could he not be angry? With a roar, the white tiger's figure opened and pounced towards Xiaohua. "You deserve to die." Xiaohua's anger soared to the sky, and he fiercely shouted. He waved his hand and took out the wishful staff. Boom boom. The two righteous qi locks were actually hit and sent flying. Taking advantage of this time, Xiaohua once again used his hand to touch his waist, and a pitch-black brilliance appeared from his hand. The god power centipede riding the demon cloud flew out from the space, and before it could fly close to the white tiger, it already made a squeaking sound, and the antennae on its forehead crisscrossed with each other, as if it was challenging the white tiger. Seeing the power of Xiaohua's wishful staff, Ouyang Jingran and Taishu Zhanran looked at each other, and then at the same time, they slapped their hands on the top of their heads. Boom! Two strange sounds rang out, and at the same time, three different colored true qi sprayed out from the top of their heads. These three true qi intertwined in the air, and then, a hurricane danced in the void, and hundreds of righteous qi rushed into the true qi and rushed into the two's bodies. Woo-woo! The three-colored true qi rolled down and wrapped the two's bodies, but within the clouds, the two's secondary bodies appeared. These two secondary bodies were wearing armor cast by inscriptions, but one was orange, and the other was purple. Boom! Without waiting for the secondary bodies to take shape, Taishu Zhanran waved his fist and smashed it towards Xiaohua. The suffocating wind of the fist was no less than the falling stones in the star array. The Star Monarchs of Star Monarch's palace are only SO. Xiaohua was not in a hurry. Seeing the fist fall, the wishful staff in his hand danced and smashed it with a bang. If it was a year ago, Xiaohua's attack would have been the same as the attack on Shangguan Yiran, and it might not have been able to complete the task. But in this year, Xiaohua's cultivation had been successful, and his strength had increased sharply again. The wishful staff hit Taishu Zhanran's fist, and immediately shattered it. However, Xiaohua's own body also flew high with the force of the counterattack. Ouyang Jingran frowned and reminded, Taishu, your brain is sick. This guy can persist in the star array, relying on this staff. No matter how powerful your fist is, how can it compare to the star array? Chapter 3646. Yes, this old man was really careless. Taishu Zhanran seemed to have suddenly realized something. He shook the scroll in his hand, and a terrifying aura spread out from the scroll. The void within 1,000 zhang radius seemed to have leaked out, and endless noble qi rushed into the scroll like a waterfall. Rays of blue light flew out from the scroll. Ouyang Jingran also waved the bamboo pole in his hand, and a fire wall of hundreds of feet appeared out of thin air, attacking Xiaohua from the other side. The aura of the scroll and the fire wall also became a kind of mutual restraint, and Ouyang Jingran wanted to kill Xiaohua on the spot. Hee, didn't you want to see this old bald donkey? Then I'll let you see. Xiaohua sneered and patted his forehead. A Buddha holding a jade bottle in his hand stepped out of the Buddha light. Namo Methriya Buddha. As soon as the Buddha came out of the space, his hands formed a Buddha seal, and his whole body was covered in Buddha light. 1,000 feet tall Buddha Lord Phantom was born from the Buddha light, and the Buddha Lord Phantom shook his hand, and the 9-dragon staff turned into 9 dragons, roaring and rushing to the fire wall of hundreds of feet. With the appearance of Buddha Bodhi, Xiaohua no longer dared to be negligent. His whole body flashed with a dark golden brilliance, and his transcendence golden body was also displayed. It also grew to 1,000 feet, and the wishful steel staff grew to 1,000 feet, and he waved it to hit the scroll. Seeing Xiaohua bring out the Buddha Sarira, although the Sarira seemed to be a bit incomplete, the Buddha Lord Phantom was actually comparable to him. And although this Buddha's face was full of compassion, his body was surging with a kind of innate arrogance, which was different from all the Buddhist masters he had seen. Ouyang Jingran's eyes unconsciously lit up, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. Then for a moment, Ouyang Jingran calmed down again and smiled slightly. "Old bald donkey, are you a monk? Or a monk?" As he spoke, Ouyang Jingran waved his arm, and threw the bamboo pole into the air. Roar! The bamboo pole actually turned into a fire dragon, and pounced on the monk's staff. The raging fire instantly submerged the 9 dragons that the monk's staff had turned into. Not only that, Ouyang Jingran reached out with one hand, and a pillar of Hauran Qi landed on her arm. Amidst cracking sounds, her entire arm turned into a giant sword that was hundreds of feet long. Tens of thousands of inscriptions were condensed on the giant sword, and the inscriptions were connected to each other to form lines of poetry and articles. The fiery threads that had been there for thousands of years flashed with an ancient brilliance between the inscriptions. Woo! Ouyang Jingran sneered as a cold wind blew. He waved his arm, and the huge sword streaked across the sky. A fiery light that was nearly 300 meters long flashed past, producing a loud boom. The unstable space began to tremble, and cracks appeared as the fiery light collided with the sword light. Waves of awe-inspiring qi uncontrollably rushed into the cracks in the void. The austere killing intent followed the sword light, and instantly drowned Bodhi. The sound of Sanskrit weakened, and the heavenly flowers disappeared. The 9-dragon staff was entangled by the fire dragon, and Bodhi was also enveloped by the sword light. He seemed to have reached a dead end. Namo Maitreya Buddha, Bodhi raised his head slightly, and the compassion in his eyes was even more intense. He recited the Sanskrit incantation, Ja. The word Ja came out of Bodhi's mouth, and it immediately flashed with Buddhist light and turned into dozens of feet in size. It also made a sound of thunder and lightning as it flew toward Ouyang Jingran's giant sword. He's reciting Buddhist mantra? Ouyang Jingran was a little confused. She seemed to have never heard of a Buddhist cultivator who had this kind of magical power. While Ouyang Jingran was in a daze, Bodhi's Sanskrit incantation collided with the giant sword. Boom! The huge sound shook the space where the two people were. The Sanskrit incantation turned into a thin ray of light under Ouyang Jingran's attack, and disappeared into the void. Ouyang Jingran's huge body was also thrown off balance by the huge force. Boom! At the same time, another huge roar came from the distance. Taisher Zhanran's scroll unfolded under the attack of Xiaohua's wishful staff. For huge inscriptions of perfection like water appeared from the scroll. The blue gas on the scroll surged, and the word perfection rushed into the sky and turned into several flying swords, falling toward Xiaohua's head. The word perfection spread out in the sky, and fist-sized clouds bloomed like lotus flowers. Each lotus flower brewed a terrifying force to surround Xiaohua's upper body. The word perfection disappeared into the void, and when it reappeared, it had turned into tens of thousands of wooden vines. The inscriptions on the vines flashed and wrapped around Xiaohua's legs. As for the word water, it was like the Milky Way hanging upside down. Every drop seemed to be able to destroy a mountain peak as it rushed toward Xiaohua. Looking at Taisher Zhanran's grin, Xiaohua was shocked. This scroll was really too powerful. The 4 words actually had 4 qi condensed. Moreover, each word had the strength of a great grandmaster. Needless to say, this scroll must have been written by a sage of literature. Poof! Xiaohua opened his mouth and spouted out a flame, which turned into a wall of fire to block the wooden vines around him. The wooden vines condensed from inscriptions turned into wisps of awe-inspiring chi in the flame and disappeared. As for the flying swords, clouds, and water, Xiaohua did not pay attention to them. The wishful staff in his hand suddenly lengthened and continued to smash toward the scroll. Oh, what is this guy doing? Taisher Zhanran was a bit stunned. This scroll was something he had to rely on to kill. Every word on the scroll was equivalent to an attack from a 5th-grade essence energy cultivator. He knew that he couldn't rely on his sub-body to block this scroll, so he couldn't figure out why Xiaohua didn't block these attacks. To catch bandits, first catch the leader? Taisher Zhanran immediately understood. Sure enough, the wishful staff hit the scroll. The flying swords, clouds, and water also fell on Xiaohua's body. At the moment the wishful staff hit the scroll, a faint and dignified voice came out from it. You dare! Immediately, thousands of noble qi condensed into a wall, blocking the wishful staff. Although this noble qi wall was defeated by Xiaohua, the wishful staff was already exhausted. In the roar, the flying swords fell on Xiaohua's shoulder. Ka-ka crisp sound, sparks splashed from Xiaohua's dharma body. Boom boom! The sound of explosions, the water and clouds rushed to Xiaohua's dharma body. What surprised Taisher Zhanran was that all the water and clouds were just smoke. Xiaohua's dharma body was actually more solid than a mainstay. It flashed with a dark golden brilliance and did not suffer any damage at all. I understand. Suddenly, Taisher Zhanran felt like he had just woken up from a dream. This guy is actually inside the star array, cultivating. This diamond body is the result of a year of cultivation. Instantly, Taisher Zhanran felt like vomiting blood. He was afraid outside the star array for a year. But this cultivator in front of him actually cultivated freely inside the star array for a year. Kill! Taisher Zhanran was angry. The noble qi around his body surged. With one hand, an azure dragon saber appeared in his hand. The azure dragon saber flashed with cold light. Taisher Zhanran slashed with all his strength. A snowy light like the moon streaked across the sky and disappeared. Then, he saw that within 1,000 feet of Xiaohua, the void set off fine wave-like patterns. In particular, a sound like a tsunami faintly came from all directions and attacked Xiaohua's 100-feet golden body. Taisher Zhanran's eyes flashed with a hint of excitement. He wanted to see if his green dragon saber could kill the diamond body that had been tempered in the star array for a year. And even when Sheng scrolls couldn't hurt it. When Xiaohua saw this, he sneered and a green light flashed between his eyebrows. Swoosh! The delusion breaker eye opened and layers of green seal characters seemed to be uncovered. A beam of silver-gray light rushed into the void. Boom! But there was a thunderous sound. Where the light beam landed, the veil of the void was lifted. The mysterious saber light actually formed a layer of saber waves under the void and attacked Xiaohua's eyes. Hit! Xiaohua roared, and the wishful staff that was like a mountain strangely swung out. Rumble! The blade wave was blocked, and thousands of layers of snowflakes splashed. The sound of thunder reverberated in the space wave after wave. Damn it! Feeling the azure dragon saber's unyielding and regret, Taisher Zhanran cursed. His heart grew timid. Xiaohua's ability was too strange. It was unexpectedly able to open the void. Although his azure dragon saber was sharp, it only left a faint saber mark on Xiaohua's wishful staff. If they continued to fight, he feared that he would not have any good methods. At this moment, Bodhi's swordsman mantra was spat out again. The Buddhist light was resplendent, and it was like a glaring vajra that attacked Ouyang Jingran. The mantra contained the Buddhist doctrine and the power of karma, causing tail fire tiger's elemental energy to palpitate. Too powerful. Ouyang Jingran did his best to resist. His heart also had thoughts of retreating. After all, this was Yaotai Mountain. She only came to help. There was no need to fight to the death. Once she left this star array, she had plenty of methods to counterattack. Similarly, the 28-star generals also had countless methods to make this monk surrender without a fight. Almost at the same time, Ouyang Jingran and Taisher Zhanran happened to raise their heads at the same time. They glanced at each other and slightly nodded. Just at this time, regardless of whether it was Xiaohua or Bodhi, they both roared at the same time. Attack! Xiaohua waved his hand. The wishful staff came crashing down. As if he knew that Taisher Zhanran wanted to escape. Taisher Zhanran pointed a finger at the scroll in midair. Sword-like clouds, splashes of water, and wooden vines flourished, doing his best to block Xiaohua's golden body. That azure dragon saber was dragged in a reverse grip. He pulled back, waiting for Xiaohua's wishful staff to arrive in front of him. Then, he immediately turned his hand and slashed. However, this slash was far from the previous power. It appeared that he merely wanted to borrow the force to escape. Looking over there, Bodhi formed a seal with one hand. The innate true water in the clear water bottle in his hand transformed into a water screen. It sprinkled in front of Ouyang Jingran, sealing off her path of retreat. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.